Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Baiju's Exam Prep IAS. This is Sham Kagotia. Before I start the discussion, if there is no issue with the sound, please do let me know so that we can start the discussion. Kindly do let me know. Am I audible? Okay, done. Thanks a lot. Let's start. Let's start. So yesterday, what we have discussed? We have discussed inflation. Correct? We have discussed inflation. Now, what is inflation? Let's basically put everything in a nutshell. Now, before I go forward, many of you yesterday kept on asking me, sir, how do I keep revising? How do I revise that? I keep on forgetting a lot of these things that you're discussing in the classroom. How do I revise it? Now, one technique that I can tell you people, one technique, whether this is useful for you or not, you people decide it. One technique that I can tell you is try to prepare mind maps for every chapter. Try to make mind maps. For example, regarding inflation, if I want to make a mind map for, let's say, inflation, how the mind map will be prepared, please have a look at it. Let's say inflation, what are the points we have discussed yesterday? First, I will start with the definition here. Again, I'm writing definition, but you don't write the word definition, you write definition. It represents, whenever it represents a situation in the economy, that is whenever the price levels will increase over a period of time, that situation is called as inflation. Or else you can also write, whenever a large amount of money, higher amount of money will run behind two fewer goods in the economy, that situation is called as inflation. So start with definition. Then we have discussed classification of inflation. We have discussed classification of inflation. One classification was based on the rate of inflation, right? Creeping inflation, walking inflation, hyperinflation, etc. Second one was based on the causes of inflation, demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, structural inflation, etc. Right, after classification, we have discussed measurements. How do we measure, right, inflation? There are two indicators to measure inflation. One is WPI, wholesale price index. Second one is a CPI, consumer price index. For WPI, I've given you multiple points. Mention those points. For example, WPI stands for wholesale price index. It is a measure of price changes in the wholesale market where large quantities, bulk quantity is bought and sold. In WPI, currently we do not include services. In the WPI basket, 697 commodities are there. It is published for every month by economic advisor from the Ministry of Commerce. Right, within this 697, we have divided them into three groups. One is manufactured items, which carries the highest weightage, more than 60%, that is around 64%. Then primary articles around 23%, remaining fuel and power around 13%. Right, so these are certain important points. If you want to remember, you can also write Soumitra Chaudhary working committee has recommended this. The base year for the calculation of WPA is 2011 and 2012. And the latest committee regarding WPI is the Ramesh Chand committee. After that, you can write certain points regarding CPI. CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. It measures changes in the price levels in the retail market, that is the market where households will purchase the goods and services. CPI is measured under different parameters or in different ways. The most important ones are CPI combined, CPI urban, CPI rural. In CPI combined, we have, right, let's say 299 and 448, 460 in case of CPI urban and CPI rural. Apart from that, CPIW is there, that is used for giving certain price adjustments, or let's say certain part of the salary is given to adjust for the price changes for the government employees, right? Dearness allowance, dearness relief. Yesterday we have discussed this, right? CPI base year is 2012. It is published. CPI, I'm talking about CPI rural combined and CPI urban. It is published by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, that is National Statistics Office. This is published for every month. It includes both goods as well as services. These are certain points regarding CPI. Then you can have a discussion or you can write point regarding why there is a divergence. Why there is a divergence between both the CPI as well as a WPI. What are the features? Why there is a divergence? One, base year is different. Base effect might be different. The composition is different. One includes services, another one excludes services. The weightages given to the components are also different. These are the reasons why divergence exists. And again, please understand this. I am not writing all of it. You write point wise like this. Why there are divergences? These are the reasons. After that, we have discussed different concepts related to inflation. For example, we have discussed stagflation. Write stagflation, write a point regarding stagflation. Phillips curve, write Phillips curve, write one or two points regarding Phillips curve. Then we have discussed inflation tax, right? That is whenever you hold cash for a longer duration because of inflation, the purchasing power of the cash will come down, right? Simply write all of these concepts. Disinflation, deflation, headline inflation, core inflation, imported inflation, wage price spiral. We have discussed all these concepts. Write one or two points regarding all of them. After that, we have discussed a flexible inflation targeting. Flexible inflation targeting, FIT, flexible inflation targeting. What are the points regarding flexible inflation targeting? Government of India and the Reserve Bank of India have signed an agreement in 2015, which has come into force in 2016. So first point can be signed, MPFA signed in 15 and has been implemented in 2016. Point number two, under this, government will decide inflation target in consultation with RBI for 5 years. Third, what is the target? 4% plus or minus 2%. And when I say 4% plus or minus 2%, it is a headline CPI. Headline CPI. Point number four, if it is more than 6 or more less than 2 for three consecutive quarters, RBI has to give a report. And under this, I've told you, under MPFA, the RBI has to meet at least 4 times in a financial year to decide regarding interest rates, to take decision regarding interest rates. So these are certain points regarding inflexible inflation targeting. After that, we have discussed a concept of base year. Concept of base year. What is the importance of base year? The base year is chosen based on a parameter that is least volatilities in the year. Data should be available in those years. That is a base year. Why it is chosen? In order to adjust for inflation impact on the GDP numbers, not to basically remove the impact of inflation. That is a basic idea of a base year. Then in the calculation of the GDP deflator, again related to base year only, in the calculation of GDP deflator, we calculate GDP. We calculate GDP at nominal prices, that is the price in the respective year, and we also remove the impact of inflation by calculating GDP at constant prices, that is the prices at base year, which is called as a real GDP. And finally, you can write GDP deflator is equal to nothing but the nominal GDP divided by real GDP. Done. So these are the points which we have discussed yesterday. I'm just putting everything in a nutshell. Now I hope you understand. I hope you understand what we have discussed in, let's say, a span of 3.5 hours. I've tried to put everything in format, in simple format. Right? It's a simple format. Again, initially it will be difficult. I'm only saying initially it will be difficult because you have to prepare the mind maps, right, for full chapters like this. But once you prepare mind maps, over a period of time, revision will be very, very easy for you. Okay, revision will be very, very easy. So all of you okay? Can we go forward now? Right, I hope you understand. And moreover, those who are saying there is no references for this, etc., etc., my dear, please tell me, have I given the references or not? Every year, every class, whatever chapter I'm discussing, I am giving you references. Now it is your duty to look at the references and start reading. Okay, so this would be my recommendation to you people. Right, one way to make it easier, this will be my recommendation. Now you will have to decide. You will have to decide whether this model will work out for you or not, because How you prepare, I don't know, right? So how you are preparing, I don't know, but I would recommend try to make mind maps for each of the chapters so that the process of preparation will be very, very easy for you. Okay, done. Let's start. Let me continue the discussion now. Yesterday we had stopped at this slide. That is, we were discussing headline and core inflation. And if you remember, the core inflation is a better indicator compared to headline. core indicator core indicator is right, basically a better indicator compared to headline. Reason being, whenever we calculate core inflation, we will remove some of the commodities such as fuel commodities and right, the food commodities whose prices are short lived, whose price changes are temporary and not permanent in nature. That is the reason we will have to remove them. So now, coming to the point, despite coming to a conclusion that headline inflation has a lot of the commodities which are volatile in nature, core inflation will exclude all of it. What indicator is used by RBI for policy making? Because if you remember yesterday, under inflation targeting, RBI has to maintain inflation rate at 4%. RBI has to maintain inflation rate at 4%. Now, what kind of inflation? This is CPI. This is CPI, and within CPI you can have core also, you can have headline, but which is this? 4%, is it core inflation, is it a headline inflation? This is headline CPI. This is headline CPI. That is, you will have to consider all the commodities in the basket. Right now the question arises, why is that RBI chooses to use headline CPI, why not core CPI? Right? And are there any arguments for RBI to use a core CPI and not headline CPI? Point number one, in favor of headline inflation, in favor of headline CPI, what are the points? Point number one, think of it. If you are a household, if you are a household, don't you think you will spend a lot of money on day-to-day basis, or let's say even on monthly basis, on food and fuel? Please start participating. I know early morning, a lot of you are feeling sleepy. If you're a household, a lot of the consumption that you do, a lot of expenditure that you do on weekly basis, monthly basis, etc., is it not on food and fuel? Of course, yes. We spend a lot of money on food and fuel only. But if I shift to core inflation, if RBI will start making policy on core inflation, are we not simply removing some of the items on which households will spend a lot of money? So argument of RBI is yes, right? Yes, I know that core is better than headline, but I want to target an indicator based on which I will make policy, the indicator which will include food as well as fuel items. Right? So that is one. Food and fuel prices affect the common man. So I will target that only. I will use that indicator itself. Second one, in case of India, if you remember yesterday, I told you that 5 years before the inflation targeting was implemented, the average rate of inflation was more than 5%. And even before that also, even before that, for many years, inflation rate was in double digits in India. I'll repeat the statement. In fact, this point is there in the earlier slide. Please have a look at it. 5 years before the inflation targeting was implemented, the average inflation rate was more than 5%. And before that, for many years, inflation rate was in double digits. But once we have implemented flexible inflation targeting using headline CPI, average inflation rate for 5 years has averaged around 3.5%, which means even though we are targeting headline, we are able to maintain the headline inflation in India. We are able to control headline inflation on an average to around 3.5%, and the target is how much? 4%. So argument of RBI is, no doubt, headline is not a quality indicator compared to CPI. I'm sorry, the core CPI. But even then, I'm able to control it at 3.4%, which is good for India. That is the reason I'll continue to target headline CPI. I'll continue to control and take headline CPI only. Third one, we are going through certain recovery, right? 2020, 21, there was a pandemic, and 22, again, there was a second wave, third wave, etc. So we are going through a recovery phase now, right? We experienced a recession and we are going through a recovery phase. During a recovery phase, we should not implement sudden changes in the policies, especially at the RBI level. We should not implement certain changes in the policies. Let's recover first. Over a period of time, when we have recovery, over a period of time, we will start achieving a stable growth. We will recover. Expansion will start experienced by the economy. At that point of time, if we want, we will again have a relook whether should we have headline or core CPI as a target for inflation, right? So these are certain points which have been given by Government of India as well as RBI in favor of targeting headline CPI. But what are the points in favor of core CPI? Why should we target core? Why not headline? First one, core inflation is a better indicator. Core inflation is a better indicator compared to headline. That's a fact, by the way, right? We are taking an indicator which is better than headline. So shift to core. Point number two, headline inflation will consider the commodities whose prices are very volatile. And because the prices are temporary, going to go up, go down, headline CPI will keep on going up and going down. And when the CPI, headline CPI will keep on fluctuating like this, it makes it very difficult for policy making. It is very difficult for RBI to have a stable policy. And always remember this, RBI has a huge impact on the overall economy. When we discuss the Reserve Bank of India under banking chapter, you'll understand it. RBI should not keep on changing policies or keep on making opposite policies very, very frequently. For example, imagine imagine today crude oil prices will go up, which means the headline CPI will also go up. So RBI will increase interest rates. After 2 months, right, the crude oil prices will fall down, CPI will also fall down, and RBI will reduce interest rates. After 2 months, again increase. After 2 months, again decrease. So you want RBI to make policies which are opposite like this, right? Very frequently change like this? Answer is no, right? As a market, as an investor, as a company owner, you would never want RBI to keep on changing the policies very frequently. Stable policies are required. So argument here is that because headline considers all these items whose prices are very volatile, keep on changing very often, it might force RBI to also keep on changing policies very often. So do not use a headline, use a core. And finally, right, this will have a huge impact on the overall economy, right? Because the policies are getting changed very frequently, overall economy will also get affected. Policy making becomes uncertain. Done. So these are certain points in favor of headline inflation, in favor of core inflation, right? But even today, I'll repeat it, even today, RBI uses headline CPI to make policies. To make policies, what is the anchor used? They use the term anchor. What is the anchor used? Anchor means the policy indicator. What is the anchor used for making the monetary policy decisions in India? The anchor used for monetary policy decisions in India is a headline CPI and not core CPI. Right, so these are certain important points, whether should we go for headline or core. Okay, after discussing all of it, two of the students are asking, why is RBI using headline CPI? Why? What did I discuss so far? You please tell me, what did I discuss in the last 10 minutes? I discussed the same reasons why RBI supports headline and why should we shift it to core. Okay. Okay, now what is the impact of inflation? What is effect of inflation? If there is inflation, what is the impact? Point number one, it will reduce your purchasing power, right? Anybody who is going to purchase goods and services in the market, if there is inflation, it will reduce the purchasing power. Sir, what do you mean by that? Let me take a very simple example. Imagine right now in the market, onion price is 20 rupees per kg. Although it is not 20, but let's say right now in the market, onion price is 20 rupees per kg. If you have money, if you have 100 rupees, can I say you will be able to purchase 5 kgs of onion? All of you okay? If you have 100 rupees and 20 rupees per kg, you will be able to purchase 5 kgs of onion. Now, if the price will increase to 25 rupees, same amount 100 rupees. Now, don't you think the quantity you'll be able to purchase, the number of goods you'll be able to purchase will automatically go down? And the reason is simple, because the things have become more expensive, more costly. With the same amount of money, you'll not be able to purchase same quantity. How much quantity you'll be able to purchase will come down. So it will reduce, it will reduce the purchasing power of the consumers in the market. Point number two, it will also reduce real rate of returns. It will also reduce real rate of returns. Now, what is this real rate of returns? Please understand this. Real rate of returns basically is the returns after adjusting for inflation. I'll repeat the statement. Right? Real rate of returns is nothing but the returns that you are earning. Now you will ask me, sir, where do I earn returns? For example, please tell me, if you keep money in your fixed deposit, will you earn returns? Yes. If you keep money in your savings bank account, will you earn returns? Yes. So again, these are two examples. I can give you n number of examples. If you have invested in the stock market, bond market, etc., you will earn returns. But whenever you earn returns, the returns are adjusted with inflation. That is, inflation impact is accounted. What you get after that is called as real returns. Let me give a very simple example. And let me give a very simple example. Lot of you would have kept your money in the savings bank account. Correct me if I'm wrong. Lot of you, not all of you, because some of you have this information. That's the reason would have taken certain measures. Lot of you would have kept your money in your savings bank account. Right? The reason that you will tell me is, again, you're not wrong by the way. The reason that you will cite is that, sir, I want to withdraw money whenever I want to. The issue with fixed deposit is, if I keep it for certain number of days, I cannot withdraw money. But savings bank account, I can withdraw at any point of time. Right? Even now, I can run to ATM, withdraw money. But there is an issue by keeping your money in the savings bank account. The issue is that the bank will give you 4% interest rate, assuming it's an average rate. Some of the banks will give you more than 4. Some of the banks will give you less than 4 also. The bank will give you 4% interest rate. Let's say if you keep 100 rupees today, after 1 year, you will get 104 rupees. Correct. If you keep 100 today, you will get 104. But during the same time period, if the inflation rate is 10%, during the same time period, if the inflation rate is at 10%, does it not mean whatever price of the good was today 100 rupee, after 1 year, the price of the good would have become 110? Correct? Think of it. Whatever was the price of the good, or let's say basket of goods, you would have purchased it using 100 rupees today. After 1 year, because the inflation rate is 10%, it would have become 110 rupees. So now tell me, even though on the face of it, you are earning 4%, even though on the face of it, you are earning 4%, is it sufficient to meet whatever is the inflation that is taking place in the economy? Don't you think in real terms, I'll repeat, don't you think in real terms, in this example, your real rate of returns is minus 6%? Yes or no? Early morning CSAT, I'm using CSAT. Please think of it and do let me know. In this example, don't you think your real returns, right? How much is your actual earning is, you have not earned anything after adjust for inflation, right? That will be minus 6%, which means out of your pocket, you are spending 6 rupees extra to purchase the same set of goods and services after 1 year. So all of you okay when I say whenever you have inflation in the economy, your real returns will be lesser. And some of you will simply say, sorry, does it always means I'm going to lose? I'm going to spend additional 6 rupees from my pocket? Not necessary, because I've assumed inflation of 10% here. What if inflation number is different and returns, nominal returns is different? For example, instead of 4%, what if you invest in an EFD? What if you keep money in the fixed deposit and the interest rate is 6%? Right? I'll repeat it. Instead of savings bank account, you keep money in your FD, interest rate is 6%, and inflation rate is 4% now. Inflation rate is 4%. On paper, you're saying you're earning 6%. I repeat, on paper, you're earning 6%. But after you adjust for inflation, can I say your returns, a real rate of returns will be 2% in this case? All of you okay? Right? Returns in this case will be 2% in this case. Right? So I hope you understand. Right? The real returns can be positive also, can be negative also. What does it depend upon? It depends upon how much you are earning, nominally how much you are earning, and how much is the inflation rate. Right? It depends upon that. If both of them keep on changing, your real returns will also keep on changing. Now, what is the tip? Right? If you're an investor, if you have a lot of money in a savings bank account, what is the tip here? What is the inference? Again, UPSC will not ask you this. It simply means don't keep money in your savings bank account. Don't keep money in your savings bank account. Right? On paper, they might be giving you 4%, 5% interest rate in your savings bank account. But if you look at the inflation rate in India, you are not earning anything, you're actually losing money. For example, if you look at the data in the last year, for majority period of the time, I repeat, for last year, for majority period of the time, retail inflation was more than 6%. In the last year, 2022, if you look at the calendar year, for majority period of the time, inflation rate was more than 6%. And SBI will give you 3.5%. It will give you 4% interest rate. Are you earning anything? No, you are actually losing 2%. Right? So it will reduce the real rate of returns. Always remember this. Inflation will always reduce the real rate of returns. And those who are asking, sir, in that case, what should I do? I'll tell you the answer. But again, it is an advice. You might either take it or leave it. Same thing I've given in the form of a picture. Please have a look at it. Please have a look at same thing. Nothing else is different. Same thing I've given in a picture. Now, those are asking, sir, what should I do in that case? One, again, please understand, I'm not charging money. That's the first thing. And second, it's an advice, right? If you want to follow it, but you are taking a risk. Please know that you are taking a risk by following it. One, you can invest in government bonds, very, very, very safe bonds. They will give you good returns, not the best returns, good returns. Or else, I don't know how many of you are reading newspapers. Yesterday itself, there was a launch of a type of a government bond called a sovereign gold bond. I don't know how many of you are reading newspapers, how many of you are looking at this, that, etc. Yesterday itself, there was a launch of a sovereign gold bond. Right? There was a launch, SGB. It is available till 22nd. SGBs in the past, the first tranche of SGBs have given a returns of around 14%. SGBs have given a returns of around 14%. Now in the classroom, I have not discussed SGB. I know that I have not discussed. We'll discuss it later under financial market. Don't worry. So there are different avenues. For example, Canara Bank, ICICI Bank, they have a different types of instruments wherein they will basically shift, right, some of the funds in your savings bank account. They'll block some of the funds in your savings bank account, but at a higher rate of interest. Right? Flexi float, right? Initiatives are there, etc., etc. So again, there are different avenues, but the best one I can tell you is investment in gold. But again, please understand, gold is not cheap. Gold is very costly, right? Gold is not cheap, more than 6,000 rupees per 1 gram now. But if you look at it, the gold over a longer period of time, not in a week, not in 2 days, etc. Gold in a longer period of time generally will give you good returns. If you look at the gold prices in a longer duration, will give you good returns. That is the reason. Please observe this. Whenever inflation rates will start increasing in the market, central banks will start buying lot of gold. I'll repeat the statement. Whenever inflation rate will start increasing, whenever the inflation is very right higher level, or it is increasing at a higher level, it is stubborn, inflation is not coming down at all, central banks will start buying lot of gold. And RBI is not an exception, even RBI does it. Why? Gold prices generally keep on increasing, on an average keep on increasing. Cash, because of inflation, will keep on losing value. Done. So again, this is my advice to you. Risky, you want to take it, make your own decision. If you want to ignore like any other advice I give in the classroom, ignore it. Now let me go forward. Exports. Inflation will also affect exports. Inflation will always affect exports. How so? Let me explain it. Imagine, okay, you're manufacturing, right, a product. You're manufacturing a product. Because of inflation, can I say whatever product you're manufacturing, the market price of that will go up. Correct? The market price of that will go up. And because the market price of this product that you are manufacturing in India has gone up, now please tell me, can it become more costly in the international market compared to other products? Please think of it and do let me know. Right? You are manufacturing a product, and because of inflation, the price has gone up. Now, can this product become more costly, comparatively costlier compared to your competitors in the international market? And because your product has become more costlier, right, comparatively more costlier, don't you think your exports would be affected? Your exports to other countries would be affected. And on the other side, let's say you have 100 rupees, the price of the product has increased from 20 rupees to 25 rupees in India. The product price has increased from 20 to 25 rupees. Now you may find import much cheaper. Is it okay? Right? Are you able to make sense or not? Because the price of the product, imagine you have 100 rupees, price of the product in India has gone up from 20 to 25. You may find a product which is imported much cheaper. So whenever any country has a very high rate of inflation, export competitiveness will start coming down, and imports might start increasing, because with the same amount of money, you may now find out you can buy more of imports compared to the domestically produced goods. Right? That is the impact of inflation on imports as well as exports. It will also affect investment scenario. Inflation, high rate of inflation will always have an impact on the investment scenario. How so? Just now I told you, rather than keeping money in, let's say, savings bank account, you can invest in gold, you can invest in bond, you can invest in shares, etc., etc. Now, don't you think that will lead to change in your investment strategy? Correct? Does it make sense or not? Change in your investment strategy. Some of the foreign investors might simply feel real rate of returns in India is very less. Rather than investing in India, I will invest in USA. So they might withdraw their investments, invest in USA. So higher inflation rate will also have an impact on investments. It will have a huge impact on investments. So these are some of the effects of inflation, right, in the overall economy. Can we go forward now? Anybody has an issue? Can we go forward? Let me know. Now, before I go to how to control inflation, right, nobody has asked this to me, but I'll ask the question. I'll ask the question. Why is inflation necessary then? Why is inflation necessary? Right? Because we have a target. We have a target of 4% inflation rate. Why 4%? Why not 0%? Because just now we have discussed inflation will have impact on exports, imports, investment, real rate of returns, purchasing power, etc. Why is there a need for inflation then? These are some of the reasons. Point number one, please remember this. Point number one, yesterday's discussion, if you remember, I told you generally whenever inflation keeps on increasing, it is associated with GDP growth. Is it okay? Whenever you have inflation, it is associated with GDP growth. Right? Generally, not always, because if the inflation is happening under stagflation, that is not associated with higher GDP growth. But generally, what is the idea? GDP is increasing, people are earning more. Because they are earning more, they will have more money, they will purchase more goods and services, that will cause inflation. That is the correlation. Now, if you have inflation of 4% and this is associated with GDP, RBI says, Government of India says, it is manageable. It is manageable, right? And why do we target 4%? The Government of India says 4% means the common man, the households, because there is a GDP growth, people are earning more, they will not feel a higher burden of inflation at 4%. They will not feel the higher burden. But if the inflation target was 9%, 8%, or 10% for that matter, there might be certain burden felt by the common man because the inflation target would be very, very high. So 4% manageable. It's manageable. People will not feel burdened by it. That is the reason we have kept a target of 4%. And please remember this also. Not every country follows a target of 4%. It's not necessary for all the countries to follow a target of 4%. For example, please remember this. USA, United States of America, the Federal Reserve in USA has an inflation target of 2%. It has an inflation target of 2%, and this is appearing in the newspaper very often. If you're reading newspapers, this appears in the newspaper very, very often. For example, last week, Federal Reserve, right, there was a policy announcement done by the Federal Reserve regarding their federal rate. So anyways, so come back to India here. We have 4% for a very simple reason. Inflation is generally associated with GDP. So GDP is also expanding. That is an indicator. Second, right? Second, now please think of it. Instead of inflation, let's say if there was a deflation, instead of inflation, if there was a deflation, can I simply say lot of consumers will postpone their consumption to the future? I'll explain it. Listen to me very carefully. Instead of inflation, if there was a deflation, then in that case, lot of consumers will postpone, right? Will postpone consumption to the future, right? Why? Many of you ask me, why, sir? Let's say, right? Imagine a product is there. You want to purchase the product. Price of the product has fallen down by 20% in the last 1 month. Many of you, again, not all of you, right? Some of you will disagree with me because, and again, you're a minority in the economy, right? Many of you, what you will do is, because this is not an essential product for me, let me wait for 1 more month and let's see if the product will fall down by another 10%. That is, the price of the product will fall down by another 10%. Please tell me, will many of you think in this way or not? Again, I'm not talking about essential product. I'm not referring to essential product. Any other product, if the prices have fallen down in the last 2 weeks, last 3 weeks, what you will do is, let me wait for a couple of more days. Prices might further fall down. If you still disagree, now tell me whether you disagree with my next statement. Don't you think many of you will wait for sales days which are run by Amazon and Flipkart? All of you will agree with me? Many of you are waiting for the big billion sales day or year-end sales, etc., etc. Why? What is the reason? Reason being, you know that at the end of the year or maybe in the beginning of the next year, lot of discounts will be provided. And because the discount means prices are lower. So again, apply the similar logic. It's not same, but similar logic. Because now you're saying, in the last 2 weeks, prices have fallen down. Let me wait for another week. Prices might further fall down. So during deflation, price levels are falling down, and that is not good for the economy. Why? If people will keep on postponing their consumption, demand will become lesser. And if the demand becomes lesser, production will be affected. If production is affected, right, basically supply would be affected, employment would be affected, GDP would be affected, etc. Right? So one, it is associated with GDP. We are happy with that. Second, if not inflation, if there is a deflation, it simply means people will start postponing consumption, and we do not want that. We do not want that as well. Right? So these are some of the reasons why we generally assume that 4% inflation rate, a moderate inflation rate, is good for the economy, not very high inflation rate. Okay. Now, if there is inflation, how do you control it? Right? If there is inflation, how do you control it? How do you address the issue of inflation? Point number one, and again, please understand, there will be multiple examples of it. There will be n number of ways you can control inflation. One, you can reduce the money supply. RBI can reduce the money supply. This can basically ensure that with reduction in the money supply, demand will come down. And if the demand will come down, right, don't you think automatically the demand for the domestically produced goods as well as imported goods automatically will come down? So one way to control demand is reduce money supply. Increase the interest rates, make it more costlier to borrow from the market. That will automatically reduce the demand in the market. Second, government is spending a lot of money. Government also can reduce its expenditure. Right? Increase the taxation, reduce expenditure so as to control inflationary trends in the market. Government will increase the income tax rate, which will reduce the disposable income and reduce aggregate demand. Households may start saving more money rather than spending money. If you have 100 rupees, think of it. If you have 100 rupees, in one example, you might spend, let's say, 60 rupees in the market, which means you have a demand worth 60 rupees and your savings is 40 rupees. Rather than this, in another example, if you spend only 30 rupees and save 70 rupees, can I say, by saving more money, you can reduce the demand in the market, and right, automatically it can control inflation. Now, many of you ask, sir, how can you make people save more money? Right? How can you make people save more money? Right? How can you make them? Simple. If banks will start providing higher interest rates, don't you think people will start saving more money and keeping deposits? Think of it. Please do think of it and do let me know. If banks will start providing higher interest rates, and have the banks done it? Of course, yes. In the last 1 year, even the deposit rates have been increased slightly by the banking sector. Reason being, the people will save more money, keep more deposits, and when they keep more deposits, the amount of money that they have to spend in the market automatically will come down. Right? Households should start saving more, increase the production, but again, please remember, you cannot increase the production in short term. Overnight, you cannot change the production. Only in the long duration or medium term, you can increase the production so that the inflation will not continue to exist. Right? So these are some of the ways to control inflation. Again, some of the ways. Right? Now, let me give you certain examples in the current affairs how government is trying to control inflation in India. First one, please do let me know whether all of these make sense. All of you are reading this in the newspaper or not. First one, government is imposing minimum export price. Government is imposing minimum export price, MEP. Have you come across this? Tell me, aspirants, right? UPSC aspirants, please tell me, are you people reading in the newspaper? Government imposing minimum export price. Now you'll ask me, sir, what is this minimum export price? Let's say hypothetically a product, government will tell you at what price, right, below which you are not allowed to export it to the international market. I'll repeat it. What will be the minimum price at which you will be allowed to export? Below this, you will not be allowed to export. Below that price, you are not allowed to export. Why? If you are going to export at price X and not below this, what if this price X is very competitive, or let's say becomes comparatively costlier, right, in the international market? Is the logic okay? If price X, I'll take a number so that you understand. If the price X is 20 rupees per kg, below 20 rupees per kg, you are not allowed to export. You will not be allowed to export. Which means, what if in the international market price of this commodity is 19 rupees per kg, 18 rupees per kg, 19 rupee 50 rupees, 19 rupee 50 paisa per kg, right? Don't you think automatically your export will lose competitiveness, right? Because your exports will lose competitiveness. Rather than exporting, what will happen to domestic supply? Domestic supply will increase. And when the domestic supply will increase, can we control inflation? Answer is yes, by the way. So government is using minimum export price. Second one, government is also imposing taxes on exports. Government is also imposing taxes on exports, right? Remember this. Why? Generally, we don't impose taxes on exports. Generally, we do not impose taxes on exports. Why? Reason being, if you impose a tax on the export, can I say the product will become more costlier? And because the product becomes more costlier, right, your exports might become lower. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Arey Baba, listen carefully. Listen carefully. You people are not listening. If you impose a tax on this product, you are the government. Price of the product is 100 rupee. You are exporting it. You are exporting it. If the government will impose a tax of 10 rupee on this export, now don't you think the price will increase to 110? And if the price becomes 110 rupees, do you think you will be able to export more? Don't you think your exports will automatically come down? And when your exports will automatically come down, domestic supply will increase. Domestic supply will increase, right? And the exports will come down. When the domestic supply increases, inflation will come down. Correct? So taxes on exports, right? This is also one way to control inflation. This is being done by the government. Third one, government is imposing restrictions over warehousing limits. Government is changing restrictions over warehousing or storage limits. If you're reading newspapers, all these are very, very common, very, very common. And for example, for rice, wheat, government is changing how much storage you're allowed to do, how much warehousing you're allowed to do. For example, many of you ask me, then what is the impact of it? Until now, let's say you are allowed to store 40 tons. Let's take a simple example. Until now, you are allowed to purchase and store 40 tons. If government will reduce this to 25 tons, can I simply say the additional 15 tons you'll have to supply to the market now? Correct? Additional 15 tons you'll have to supply to the market. So supply to the market will increase, and that increased supply will help you in controlling inflation. Fourth one, government is conducting certain activity called as open market sale scheme. Open market sale scheme. Now, what is this open market sale scheme? OMSS, open market sale scheme. Under OMSS, there is one authority of Government of India, Food Corporation of India. There is one authority of Government of India, Food Corporation of India. What is Food Corporation of India doing? Food Corporation of India will purchase food grain from the farmers and store it. Right? Store it. And that food grains will be used for Food Security Act, that is public distribution system. It will be used for midday meals, etc. So Food Corporation of India has purchased food grains. It is storing food grains. Now imagine the same food grain, the market prices are increasing. Then Food Corporation of India will take these food grains, sell it in the market, auction it, and ensure that supply of this food grain will start increasing. Right? That is open market sale scheme. And fifth example of what government of India is doing, it is entering into various agreements. It is entering into various agreements with other countries to import various agriculture commodities. Right? Very recently, we have signed multiple agreements to import pulses from various other countries, such as African countries. We are entering into agreements to import food grains, basically pulses, right? So that supply will increase, market prices will cool down. Done. So these are some of the examples. Again, please understand, I can give you many more also. For example, in case of onion, have you seen this being done by government? In case of onion, government purchased the onion from the farmer, sold it at lower prices to customers in the market. Yes or no? Please tell me. Have you people come across this? That government purchased onion from the market and sold it at lower prices. Lower means subsidized prices to customers in various cities in India. Why? Because the market prices of the onion was very, very high, very, very high. Right? Common man, many of these households, especially poor households, were not able to afford onion. At that point of time, government purchased it, paid a subsidy, that is basically incurred certain expenditure at subsidized prices, at lower prices, sold it to customers in the market. Right? So these are some of the initiatives. These are some of the initiatives that have been undertaken by the government in order to reduce the burden of inflation on the common man in recent times. Recent times. Okay. Can we go forward now? Repeat OMSs. Under open market sale scheme, Food Corporation of India, which has purchased the food grains and stored the food grains, now will sell these food grains in the market. Not to the customer, to the traders. Will sell it to the traders. Traders will sell it in the customer or retail market. So by selling these food grains, and please understand, Food Corporation of India is not set up for commercial activities. FCI, it's a government owned agency. It is not there for commercial activity. Commercial activity means, right, it is not there to purchase and sell it at a higher price. That is not the objective of FCI. So what FCI generally does is they will purchase food grain, and these food grains, please tell me, have you heard of Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana? Let me see how many of you are reading newspapers. Pradhana Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Very recently, it has been extended by 5 years. Under that, 5 kgs of food grains are provided free of a cost to the people. So where does government get those food grains? So government has set up an authority, Food Corporation of India, which will purchase food grains from the farmers, store it, distribute it under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, under midday meals scheme, under ICDS, etc. That is the reason, right? Government says FCI has huge food grains now, huge quantity of food grains. Now we will use these food grains to increase the supply in the market. We will sell it to traders. Traders will sell it in the retail market. If you increase the supply, market price automatically will come down. Okay. Minimum export price. I'll repeat it again. Listen carefully. Some of you are not listening. Minimum export price. Look at the name. It is the price below which you are not allowed to export. It is the price below which you are not allowed to export. If the government will keep the minimum export price at a higher level, automatically, instead of selling at 18 rupees, exporting at 18, let's say MEP is 20, now you will have to export it at least to 20 rupees. If the price of your export, if the cost of your export will increase like this, automatically export competitiveness will come down, and rather than exporting it, now you'll have to sell it in the domestic market. Increase the supply, and when you increase supply, prices will automatically come down. Okay, so these are some of the examples. I repeat, these are some of the examples which have been right undertaken by the government in recent times in order to control inflation in the domestic market. Okay, right. So other concepts we have discussed yesterday, right? All these concepts yesterday only we have discussed. Phillips curve also discussed. The nominal real GDP, GDP deflator also done. So this is the end of the discussion regarding chapter of inflation. Chapter of inflation. Again, here and there, wherever it is applicable, I'll keep on bringing certain concepts. You'll have to keep on updating. Can we solve questions now? GDP questions are also left out, and inflation concepts, inflation questions are also left out. Can we solve questions? Yeah, the previous year questions, both prelims as well as mains. Anybody has difficulty? Okay. So questions from the national income aggregates. Second chapter. How many questions have come in the last couple of years? Let's solve them. Then we can take up inflation questions. Start now. Okay, 54% have answered correctly, but it should be more. As far as I'm concerned, it should be more. Why? Please tell me point by point. I'll ask you certain questions. Let me see how many of you have revised, how many of you even remember. Did we discuss the concept of pro-cyclical and counter-cyclical policy earlier? Let me know. Earlier classes, that is, if you ask me, sir, when you have discussed, no, you have not discussed, don't lie. Right? Go back to the Friday session. Go back to the Friday session. You will see at the end of the session, basically last 10-15 minutes, we have discussed pro-cyclical, counter-cyclical policy. Now, whenever there is a recession, based on that, you tell me, whenever there is a recession, should government go for a pro-cyclical or counter-cyclical policy? Whenever there is recession, and interestingly, two of the students are asking what is recession, which means you are not revising. Recession is a situation wherein for 2 consecutive quarters, the GDP registers a negative growth. Right? GDP registers a negative growth rate. That is, instead of expansion, instead of GDP expanding, GDP will start contracting for 2 consecutive quarters. That is called as recession. Right? Please revise. Please revise. You people are not revising. I don't know why. So whenever there is a recession, government has to follow a counter-cyclical policy. Otherwise, if government will also follow pro-cyclical, recession will become depression. In that case, what should be the policy? What should be the policy? What is the right measure, appropriate measure? Cut in the tax rates accompanied by increase in interest rates. Now, having discussed inflation, you please tell me, during recession, is it good to increase interest rates? Think of it. During recession, is it good to increase interest rates? Right? Because understand this, some of you are saying, how are you connecting all of it, etc. Yesterday I discussed what is the role of RBI. Correct. Yesterday I've discussed what is the role of RBI. If RBI wants to promote growth, RBI has to reduce interest rates, not increase interest rates. If RBI wants to control inflation, right, RBI will increase interest rates. So in case of recession, what should be the outcome? Should we increase interest rates? No. If you increase interest rates, loans will become more costlier. Companies will take lesser loans. Consumers will take lesser loans. And demand will further go down. So yes, tax rate cutting is correct, but increasing interest rates is not correct. So A is wrong. Correct? A is wrong. Second, increase in expenditure on public projects. So who is going to invest in public projects? Government. So if the government will increase investment in the public projects during recession, right, will it promote recovery? Just think logically. Government will increase its investment during recession. Will it promote recovery? Yes. Right. B is right, a probability. Let's eliminate all of them. Remaining ones, of course. Increase in the tax rate. During recession, should you increase tax rates or reduce the tax rates? You should reduce tax rates. C is wrong. And finally, reduce expenditure, right? Reduced expenditure on public projects, of course, by government. So during recession, should you reduce your expenses? No, you should increase your expenditure. So D is also wrong. So B is the right option. Can we go forward to the next question now? Okay. It's a straightforward question. Solve it. Do not make a mistake here also. Solve it. And those are asking, is it from previous year? Yes. You can check the papers. You will know. Okay. 86% have answered correctly. I don't know what happened to the rest of the people. The term GDP deflator is the ratio between nominal GDP and real GDP. Nominal GDP and real GDP. Yesterday only we have discussed this. Okay. Right option is option A. Explain the difference between computing methodology of India's gross domestic product before 2015 and after 2015. This was asked last year by UPSC in the mains examination. 150 words. 150 words. Explain the difference between computing methodology before 2015 and after 2015. Correct? Now, what is the concept here? What you're supposed to write? Right? It's a 150 word question. Please think of it. 150 worded question. You don't have to write an essay here. So please understand this. Your main body should have most of the words. Right? Main body should have most of the words. Right? Let's say out of 150, even if you have 120 words in your main body, that is basically explaining what is the difference in the methodology before 2015 and after 2015. That will be a very good job done. Well job done. Okay. Why? Question is not asking you to give recommendations. Question is not asking you what are the problems with the GDP methodology. Question is not asking you is GNP better than GDP, etc., etc. Stick to basics. Please stick to basics. And based on the discussion that we have done earlier regarding GDP methodology, please tell me, don't you think the question becomes difficult because you will have to limit your words to 150 words? Correct? Right? Don't you think the difficulty is because you will have to write so many things within 150 words? Can you keep on writing GVA calculation here? Can you write a table to show how GVA is calculated? Right? Can you write about, let's say, production taxes, production subsidies, product taxes, product subsidies? That itself will become 250 words. So that is the reason. Please understand, sometimes the questions are difficult because you do not know the answer. Sometimes you know half of the answer. Sometimes you feel you are hearing the words in the question for the first time. Sometimes you have lot of information. You will have to write in 150 words or 250 words. In that case, how do you address? How do you write? Start with a basic statement. Start with a basic statement. If you ask me, you may not even define GDP here. That's also perfectly right. You may not write a definition of GDP. Why? Question is not on GDP per se. It is on GDP methodology. So a statement, straightforward statement, India introduced a new methodology to calculate GDP starting 2015 or from 2015. Now directly come to the main body because you have so much of content in the main body. All of those are very good points, right? Start with the main body. The important changes are point number one, right? Point number one, again, you may write in point, you may write in paragraph also. You may write in point, you may write in paragraph, but because this is a comparison, I'm writing in points. So point number one, earlier the base year was 2004 and 5. Now the base year is 2011 and 12. Second, earlier we used to collect production data using annual survey of industries. Now we are using Ministry of Corporate Affairs 21 database. Earlier GDP was calculated using factor cost method. Now GDP is calculated using market price method. All of these changes have been introduced based on the recommendations given by United Nations under National Accounting Standards or National Accounts Systems, NAS, right? IIP was considered earlier. Now, again, I know I have not discussed IIP. Have patience. Have patience. To understand IIP, I have to discuss industries. I have not discussed IIP. I am only saying, and you don't have to point it out. I am only saying I have not discussed IIP. I will not discuss it now. I'll discuss it when I take up industries. So earlier IIP data was used. Now we are basically using GVA data, gross value addition data, to calculate market price of the goods. Right. So these are the different points which will make a comparison between GDP methodology before 2015 and after 2015. Done. So again, I'm pretty sure when I put it in terms of words, it will be right close to 150 words. In fact, it will be more than 150 words. So it is your challenge now to include all of these within 150 words. Make it more effective, because I know most of you would have by hearted GDP methodology now, GDP definition, right? The financial year, the concept of GDP and GNP, and you will write all of it in the introduction. Not at all needed. Not at all needed. Keep it to the point. Keep it crisp. Keep it to the point. It will be more than sufficient to fill in 150 words. Okay, and so the references done. Now there is one question, sir. You have written market price into the quantity that is produced is equal to GDP, right? GDP, one of the methods, but in the book it is given in a different way, right? They are subtracting this, they are adding that, they are doing this, etc., etc. My dear, both are one and the same. If you have listened to the class, I said whenever you talk about GDP, right? Let's say the product method or output method, we take final goods. Now, when I discussed, please go to the PPT. Please go to the PPT. Open the PPT on national income aggregates. When I have made a discussion, detailed discussion on GDP methodology, look at the headline. Please look at the headline or look at the heading of the slide. I've written GDP methodology. I've written production value method or output method. I've written it clearly. And what I've discussed under that is how gross value addition is calculated, how the market prices are considered, and how do we calculate GDP using production value method. Now, the formula that I've written is simply the final goods and services. And when you say final goods and services, in a broader level, are we not accounting for that when I take up gross value addition? In the sense, are we not accounting for the intermediary goods which are consumed? Subtract all of it, right? The raw materials which are consumed, subtract all of it, because under gross value addition, double counting will be eliminated. So when I say final goods, I told you very clearly, intermediary goods will not be counted. Intermediary goods will not be counted. Why? If you include intermediary goods, that will lead to double counting in or triple counting in the methodology. Same thing they have written in a different way. That's it. Don't panic. Whenever you look at some of the students, you generally get a sense that they panic a lot. Suddenly there is a difference, they'll start panicking. Do not panic. Nothing to worry. Just think. Have a calm head. Think of it. You will realize, okay, same formula in a detailed way. We have discussed gross value addition, how it is calculated. And when I told you same thing, that is final goods, I said remove raw material, remove intermediary goods, etc. So that double counting will not happen. That is in a consolidated way. Okay, now let me take up questions regarding inflation. Let me take up questions regarding inflation. Let's solve these questions. Okay, 56% have answered. Now there are certain technical terms. Some will say, sir, you have not discussed fiscal stimulus. These are not discussed in the book also, but here and there in the current affairs, the term fiscal stimulus will come in picture. Now, expansionary policy, please tell me, anybody has a problem with how expansionary policy will cause inflation in India, especially demand pull inflation? Let me know. Expansionary policy. Again, if you say, sir, you have not used expansionary policy term in the slide anywhere, earlier we have discussed expansionary policy when I discussed concept of pro and counter. Point number one. Point number two, if you look at the slide, under the demand pull inflation, I've written the term government increasing its expenditure. Government increasing its expenditure by providing subsidies, etc., etc., that will automatically lead to higher money flow. People will have more money. Now they will demand more goods and services. Right? So that expansion policy is straightforward. That is not a problem. Second point, please understand another way through which government will increase the money supply in the economy is by providing fiscal stimulus. Now you'll ask me, what do you mean by fiscal stimulus? Stimulus simply means assistance. Assistance. Government will find out certain sectors, and if these sectors are suffering, I repeat, if these sectors are suffering, then government will provide assistance to that sector. For example, let's say farmers in agriculture sector are suffering, only to agriculture sector, government will provide assistance. Telecom sector is suffering, the only to the telecom sector, government will provide assistance. Small companies, right? There's a technical term for this, MSME. MSME sector is suffering, government will provide assistance only to the MSME sector. Right? Let's say civil aviation sector is suffering, government will provide assistance only to civil aviation. So whenever government feels that one of the industry or sector is suffering, it is being burdened by certain issues, government will provide assistance only to that sector, and that is called as a fiscal stimulus. That is generally referred as a fiscal stimulus. Now please tell me, if government will provide assistance to agriculture sector, etc., will the money supply increase in the economy? Yes. If the money supply increases, can that lead to demand pull inflation in the economy? Answer is yes. The second point, yes, that will also lead to demand pull inflation. Third one, inflation indexation of the wages. Now let me explain this. Listen to me very carefully. What do you mean by inflation indexation? Let's start. Currently you have 100 rupees. Your wage is 100 rupee. And using this 100 rupee, you are able to purchase basket of goods and services whose price is 100 rupee. Basket of goods and services whose price is 100 rupee. After 1 year, because of inflation of 10%, this basket of goods and services will become 110. And now your wages will also increase by 10% to 110. Sir, why are we increasing the wages by 10%? Whatever is the inflation rate, with that only we are increasing the wages. Indexing means connecting. Indexing means linking, connecting like this. Now, please tell me, if you look at this example, when I connected, when I linked, when I indexed my wages to inflation, will my aggregate demand increase or remain same? Please look at the example. Will my aggregate demand increase or even after indexation also remain the same itself? Can I say if I go for inflation indexation of the wages, my wages will increase by the same percentage as increase in the inflation rate? And because it is increasing at the same percentage, my demand for goods and services will not change, it will still remain same. So can this cause inflation in the market? Answer is no. It cannot cause inflation in the market because the demand will still remain same. Next one, higher purchasing power. If you have a higher purchasing power now, right, won't you purchase more and more goods and services? Won't you purchase or won't you have a demand for higher goods and services? Yes. So if you have higher purchasing power, automatically yes, right, demand will increase and that can cause inflation in the market. Rising interest rates. Please tell me. We have discussed all of it. Rising interest rates, if interest rates will increase, right, loans will become costlier. And because the loans will become costlier, you people will take lesser loans, right, reduce the demand for goods and services in the market. So rising interest rates, no, that will not contribute to demand pull. Rather, it will help us controlling inflation. So 1 is correct, 2 is correct, 4 is correct. Right option for the question will be 1, 2 and 4. 1, 2 and 4. Okay. Next question. 76% have answered correctly. Why? It should be 100%. No, why? What is the issue? With reference to inflation in India, which of the following statement is correct? Controlling inflation in India is the responsibility of Government of India only. Wrong. Reserve Bank of India has no role in controlling inflation. Again, wrong. Decreased money circulation helps in controlling inflation. Yes. Increased money circulation helps in controlling inflation. It will cause inflation. So can I say right option for the question will be option C? Right option is option C here. Okay. 54% have answered correctly. Why? Which of the following? Again, I'm not, when I say why, I'm not saying why have you answered correctly. I'm saying why not others? Right? Because all these are factual. First one was more conceptual. I do understand. First one was more conceptual. You should know the concepts to understand and solve that. But these are factual questions. Which of the following brings out the consumer price index number for the industrial workers? Reserve Bank of India? No. Department of Economic Affairs? No. Labor Bureau? Yes. It is a Ministry of Labor. Yesterday only we have discussed this. It is a Ministry of Labor, right? It is there in the slide. I have written Minister of Labor, but while discussing, I said under Minister of Labor, there's an office called as a Labor Bureau. Labor Bureau is responsible for bringing out a CPIW, CPI Okay, so Labor Bureau is the right one. So right option for the question is option C here. Next one, we'll solve this. Let me explain first. We'll solve this. Slightly technical. Listen to me carefully right now. There are two terms called as a debtors and bondholders. There are two terms, debtors and bondholders. Let me explain, then we'll come back to question. Now let's start. First and foremost, right, what is the meaning of the term debtor and creditor? You will come across these terms very often in the newspapers also, debtors and creditors. What's the basic idea? Creditor means the one who has given money, right, a loan, one who has credited, given money. Debtor means one who has borrowed money. One who has given money is called as a creditor. The one who has taken money, borrowed money, is referred to as a debtor. Now, is it okay if I say, if you go to the bank, take a loan from the bank? I'll repeat. You go to the bank, take a loan from a bank, you are a debtor, bank is a creditor. All of you okay? You are a debtor and bank is a creditor. Okay. So debtor means borrower, Creditor means lender. Simplest way, right? Debtor means borrower, creditor means lender. That is point number one. Point number two, you'll come across a term called as bond. I'll discuss it now. Later, please don't keep on asking me what is bond, what is bond, what is bond. Listen now. Bond is an instrument. I repeat, bond is an instrument that is used either by the government or by the private sector to borrow from the market. I'll repeat the statement. What is the definition of a bond? Bond is an instrument which is used either by the government or by the corporate or by the private sector to borrow from the market. So now when you borrow from the market, can I say you are in debt? Please do let me know. When you borrow, right? Imagine you are the company, you have issued a bond, you have borrowed. How they will do it, I'll explain that also. Don't worry. Listen to the basics first. You have issued a bond, you have borrowed from the market, or you are the government, you have issued a bond, you have borrowed from the market. Can I say you are in a debt now? Debt means you have to repay this money. You have borrowed, you'll have to repay this money. And that is the reason they will also say bond is a debt instrument. That is the reason they will also say bond is nothing but a debt instrument. Anybody has a problem with the term bond here? Please do let me know. Anybody has a problem with the term bond? Bond is a debt instrument which can be used either by the companies or by the government to borrow from the market. Now, if I want to give it in a much better way, right? A much better way with an example. Many of you will say, give example, give example. Imagine I'm government. I'm not, by the way, but imagine I'm the government. Can everybody see a piece of cardboard in my hand? Let me know. Can everybody see a piece of cardboard in my hand? Right? Again, in movies, you must have seen when the police will catch you, they will ask you to hold it like this and take photo. Not one of those situations, different situations. Now, what is written on this cardboard? What is written? 100 rupees written, 6% is written, and 3 years is written. Which means, if I'm the government, I will give the bond to you. I will sell the bond to you. I'll collect 100 rupees from you for 3 years. I've borrowed this money for 3 years, and annually I'll give you 6% interest rate. Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. In this example, imagine I'm the government, or even for that matter, companies. It doesn't matter. I will sell this to you. I will collect 100 rupees from you. Annually, I'll give you 6% rate of interest. I am taking this 100 rupee. I'm borrowing this 100 rupee for 3 years. So now look at the technical terms. This 100 rupee, what is written on the bond is called as face value. Is it okay? Technical terms. This 100 rupee, what is written on the bond is called as face value. Second, this is 6% interest that I'm giving you is called as coupon rate. In case of bonds, this is called as coupon rate. And the 3 years is called as maturity period. Anybody has difficulties, please do let me know. Right? Face value, coupon rate, and maturity period. Can we go forward now? Can we go forward? Now, next point. If I am issuing this bond to you, I'm the government, and you will give me 100 rupees for 3 years, can I say you are a creditor, I am a debtor? Simple. Can I now say you are a creditor, I am a debtor? So all these points are clear. Next point. There is a term called as benefit. There is a term called as benefit. Right? In question, there is a term called as benefit. Many of you, even though I explain it now, you will not agree to me when I solve the question. You will keep on arguing with me. You assume that benefit is equal to profit. Because your assumption is benefit is equal to profit. And you will assume that benefit is always profit. You will keep on arguing me when I solve the question. My dear, benefit is not equal to profit. Benefit is not equal to profit. Let me prove it to you. Right? In front of your home, a road is constructed. In front of your home, a road is constructed. Will you get the benefit of the road or will you get the profit related to road? Think of it. Will you get the benefit from the road or are you getting profit from the road? No, you are not getting profit. You will get the benefit of the road. Can I give you one more example? Right? Can I give you one more example? In front of your home, government will install a street light. Right? Government will install a street light. Will you get profit or will you get benefit? So at least now all of you okay, benefit is not always profit. Benefit is not equal to profit. Do not assume that. If you assume that, you will never agree with my solution to the question. You will always write opposite. Now let me start. I'll solve it. Don't worry, I'll solve it. Consider the following statements. Inflation will benefit debtors. Inflation will benefit bondholders. So can I simply say, question is asking you, whenever there is inflation in the economy, it will either provide benefit to the creditors or it will provide benefit to the debtors. In simple terms, that is a question. All of you okay? I'll repeat the question again. Whatever they have given, I'm converting that into a different form. I'm saying, question is asking you, imagine there is inflation. So this inflation, when it is there in the economy, will it provide benefit to the creditor? Will it provide benefit to the debtor? That is the question. Always remember this. Always remember this. Whenever there is inflation in the economy, the benefit of inflation will go to debtors. I'll explain how. Listen to me carefully. Whenever there is inflation in the economy, the benefit of inflation will go to the debtors, not to the creditors. Not to the creditors. Now you will ask me, how, sir? How? I feel it should go to the creditors, but you are saying it will go to the debtors. How? Let's start. Imagine, right? Imagine, same I'll take. Imagine I am giving this bond to you today and I'll collect 100 rupees. Is it okay? I'll give this bond to you today. I'll get 100 rupees from you. And let's say instead of 3 years, let's assume 1 year. In this example, although bonds will have more than 1 year maturity. Okay, anyways, because you'll get confused, let's assume 3 years only. So I've borrowed 100 rupees from today. And after 3 years, I'll give you this 100 rupee. After 3 years, I'll return the principal of 100 rupee to me. Point number one. Point number two, today itself, you go to the market, there is a basket of goods and services that you can purchase using 100 rupee. That you can purchase using 100 rupee. Now, instead of purchasing the goods and services using 100 rupee, you will give it to me. I will give the bond to you. After 3 years, same set of goods and services, the price has become, let's say, 135 rupees. 135 rupees. Now listen to the statement carefully. Can I say, I borrowed money from you when its purchasing power is higher and returned the money to you when its purchasing power is lower? I'll repeat the statement and please do let me know whether this is correct or not. I'll repeat. I've taken money from you. I've borrowed money from you when the purchasing power of the money is higher and returned the money to you when its purchasing power is lower. And now tell me, why has the purchasing power gone down? Why has the purchasing power gone down? The purchasing power has gone down because of inflation. So now can I simply say inflation is negatively affecting you, but it is providing benefit to me? Correct? As a borrower, inflation is providing benefit to me. How? I took money from you when its purchasing power was higher and returned the money to you when its purchasing power is lower. And you as a creditor, you gave money to me, right? You provided loan to me when its purchasing power is higher, and you got the money back when its purchasing power is lower. So now can I simply say, whenever there is inflation in the economy, it will provide benefit to borrowers and not to the creditors. Is it okay? Right? Whenever there is inflation, it will provide benefit to the borrowers, not to the creditors. Anybody has a problem? Or Baba, how purchasing power will become lower? Very bad. As far as I am concerned, very bad. Why? Hardly it's been half an hour. Hardly it's been half an hour. Right? Did we not discuss how inflation will reduce purchasing power? Let me know. If I'm not discussed, I'll accept it. I'll repeat it. Did we not discuss, right, how inflation will reduce purchasing power hardly half an hour ago? I took example of 100 rupee cash that you have, right? Imagine the price of onion will become 20 rupees to 25 rupees. Here you will be able to purchase 5 kgs. Now you will be purchasing only 4 kgs. It will reduce your purchasing power, etc., etc. The whole story is over. Again, some of you are making it complicated. Sorry, interest. Answer to my question. Is the question asking you about interest, or is it asking about benefit of inflation? You please tell me. Please tell me. Those who are asking me, sir, what about interest that the lender is earning, etc., etc. The question, is it about interest rate, or is the question about who will get the benefit of inflation? That's the reason I told you, do not confuse the term profit with benefit. Do not confuse. If you look at profit, you'll say, sir, interest. But is the question about profit? Is the question about interest? Or is the question about benefit of interest will go to the creditor or lender? Sorry, a borrower. Question is that. Do not confuse. So the question simply is asking you, inflation is there, who will get the benefit of it? The borrower will get the benefit of it, because he is borrowing or she is borrowing when the purchasing power is higher, and they are returning when the purchasing power is lower. Okay, that is the reason. Even if you talk about interest, you might be earning interest, but is the money, the purchasing power of the interest money, is it not being reduced because of inflation? Yes, that is also being reduced. Okay, so that is the reason. Please remember, inflation will benefit the borrowers. Sorry, my mistake. Inflation will benefit borrowers. Inflation will not benefit creditors. So the right option for the question will be option, right, 1, option A. Okay, done. Next one, start solving now. You will have to solve this. Okay, 72% have answered correctly. Let's start. With reference to the economy, the core inflation is considered to be a better indicator than headline inflation because, please be very careful with these kind of questions. Core inflation excludes certain items that are subject to sudden and short-lived price movements. What we have discussed in a technical statement they have given. Headline, you consider all the items in the basket. Core, you will exclude certain items. If you will exclude certain items from the basket, because these items prices keep on fluctuating a lot, right? Not stable, lot of fluctuation. Remove them, right? So option A, sorry, statement A, that is the correct one. But let me eliminate the remaining ones. Core inflation has a wider basket of items, wider, narrower. Please tell me, compared to headline, can we say core has a narrow basket of items? Narrow means lesser, wider means more. So B is wrong. Headline inflation is used as a nominal anchor. Statement is correct. Is headline CPI used for policy making in India? For example, RBI uses headline CPI. Statement is correct. But now tell me, is the statement answer to the question? Let me know. Is the statement answer to the question? Please be very careful. Some of you will say, sir, but statement C is correct. Many of you will say statement C is correct. Why is not the right answer? My dear, question is core is better than headline. Why? Your answer is headline inflation is used for policy making. No. Statement is correct, but this is not an answer to the question here. Okay. Next one. Core inflation includes certain items that are subject to sudden and short-lived price movements. Exactly opposite to statement A. Wrong answer. So right option is option A. Right option is option A for the question. Next one. Okay, some of you have made a mistake. Most of you, 87% have answered correctly, but some of you, because you looked at option A is correct, you ticked it off. Right? Be very careful. Which one of the following factors can cause cost to push inflation in an economy? Oil price increases in the world. Can this lead to cost push inflation? Yes, correct. Fluctuation in the production of food grain. Best example is India itself. Best example is India. Yes. Imposition of high commodity taxes, GST. Right? Commodity taxes is nothing but GST. Next chapter is that only, taxation. We'll discuss that. Yes. Right option for the question will be option D, all of the above. Option D, all of the above is the right option. Okay. Next, descriptive question. Now, before going to descriptive question, many of you will start asking me, sir, show me the leaderboard. Show me the leaderboard. This is a leaderboard. Okay, so have a look at it. This is a leaderboard. Let me start discussing. Right now, please do let me know. Leaderboard is visible to all of you. Let me know. Is the leaderboard visible to all of you? It is not visible. Just a second. What is the issue? Whole leaderboard. Okay. Now, is the leaderboard visible now? Right, it should be visible now. Okay, now descriptive question. Do you agree with the view that steady GDP growth and low inflation have left the Indian economy in good shape? Give reasons in support of your arguments. Now, please tell me how many of you think answer to these kind of questions is given in a book? Let me see. How many of you are under the impression that answer to these kind of questions are given in a book? You'll open a book and these questions are there, or let's say there is a discussion in the book where answers you will easily get for these questions. Answer is no, by the way. If you're still having a doubt, answer is absolutely no. Why? These are from current affairs. These kind of questions, most of the questions, by the way, in GS paper 3 from Indian economy will come from current affairs. Please be very, very careful. That's the reason I'm saying, please be very careful. Questions have been asked in the past. They will be asked in the future also, but most of them will come from current affairs. Done? So with that caveat, let me explain. Do you agree with the view that steady GDP growth and low inflation have left the Indian economy in good shape? Give reasons in support of your argument. The question is so confusing. He's not saying the steady GDP growth rate and inflation is good now. Neither is the question giving you clarification whether the Indian economy is in bad shape. You will have to decide whether Indian economy is in good shape or bad shape, and you'll have to give supporting arguments. I would say Indian economy is in a good shape. Again, don't worry about pandemic. Don't worry about pandemic. Pandemic was an external event which affected the global economy. Nobody can control the impact of the pandemic, right? Every country has been affected by it, right? Including India, by the way. But if you just remove that particular blip of pandemic, the majority period of the time, yes, there has been a steady inflation in case of India, and growth rate, GDP growth rate also has been steady, right? And I would say Indian economy is in a good shape, right? How so? And is there any concern? Let me explain. GDP growth rate and inflation rate in recent times have remained steady, right? For example, if you remember the data, you can simply say that on an average, the GDP growth rate has been in the range of 4 to 5%, and inflation rate since 2016 or from 2016 to 2021 has been around 3.4%. Right? That's it. Just stop. Don't keep on defining inflation. Don't define GDP. Don't tell me how you measure GDP, etc. Waste of your time. Now, with the steady GDP growth rate, the size of the economy has expanded, right? The size of economy has expanded, and expansion in the size of the economy is generally associated with higher incomes of the people, right? More jobs getting generated, more earnings of the people, which will lift them out of poverty. And in fact, if you are reading newspapers, is the government of India claiming reduction in the poverty numbers or not? Please do let me know. Those who are reading newspapers, at least those, and those who have not read, you are supposed to read them. You're supposed to read those articles. Government of India is claiming that there is a reduction in the poverty in the recent times. Data is there. Please read that. Okay, so these are some of some of the benefits. Sectors are thriving well. Sectors are performing well. Companies are doing well. Number of jobs created is increasing. Earnings of the households has increased. Poverty numbers have reduced. These are some of the benefits that the economy has achieved because of steady GDP as well as inflation rate. Now, having said so, there are certain issues in recent times. Right? Economy is in good shape, no issue, no problem with that. But there are even today certain issues which are plaguing the economy. For example, food inflation rate has been increasing. Right, food inflation rate has been higher, right? The food inflation has been higher. For example, tomato prices, wheat prices, right, rice prices, onion prices, pearls prices, vegetable prices. So food inflation has been increasing. It is a cause of concern. Reason being, food inflation will affect all of us, but the impact will be very big, or impact will be much bigger in case of middle class households and poor households. Right, all of you okay? Because please think of it. Everybody will spend money on food. You will spend money on food. I will spend money on food. But a poor household where income is very, very limited, if the food inflation is very high, the impact of food inflation will be felt by the poor household more compared to somebody else in the economy. Right? That is the reason food inflation is a cause of concern. Unemployment rate is also a concern, right? At least all of you should agree now, looking at what has happened in the parliament in recent times. Unemployment rate is a cause of concern. In fact, I had asked you people to read about an article in Hindu newspaper regarding unemployment. Have you people read it? Have you people read it or not? If you have not read it, please do read it. Unemployment rate, food inflation, supply shocks, right? Supply shocks and issues are in some of the sectors. For example, civil aviation sectors, many of the companies are closing down. That will lead to higher unemployment, right? Many of the companies are laying off employees, right? Many of the startups are laying off the employees. That will lead to unemployment, higher unemployment rate, loss of wages, lower demand. Again, you can understand the vicious cycle. So there are certain issues which is plaguing Indian economy. Government of India has to implement measures or increase its measures or policies so that these issues will be resolved. Right, so this is how you address these kind of questions, either in 150 or 250 words. Accordingly, you adjust the writing. Okay, right. So this is a descriptive question which has been asked by UPSC regarding inflation. Now this is the reference for you, right? Inflation chapter in the NCRT book. NCRT book, the term is used, term is defined, but much of the discussion is not there in NCRT book. Okay. But in Tamil Nadu board, 12th class economics chapter 5, page number 84 to 85, 89, if you have read it, good. Lot of discussion regarding what we have discussed on inflation is there in this book. Okay, so with this we are going to complete inflation. If there are any questions, please do let me know. I'll address your questions. Then we can take a break. In these types of questions, can we say both yes and no, or just yes and no? My dear, don't say both yes and no. You're contradicting yourself. Say yes, Indian economy is in a good shape. However, these are the issues. Okay. What if the purchasing power low when the creditor giving loan and purchasing power become high when he get money back? My dear, you're talking about deflation. You're talking about deflation. Now, please think of it. Can I say during deflation? I'll repeat. During deflation, creditor will get the benefit of inflation. Let me know. I'll repeat the statement. Please think and do let me know. During deflation, the creditor will get the benefit and not the lender, not the borrower. All of you okay? All of you okay? Exactly opposite. Exactly opposite to what happened in inflation. Okay. Sir, a base year is also inflated GDP from the previous year. Then how can we consider it as a real GDP? My dear, in that case, what is a standard? What is a standard? Against what you will make a comparison? Can you take 1947 because it has got historical importance? Absolutely no. I hope you understand. Right? Even in the base year, compared to previous years, there will be inflation. Of course, no doubt. But in that case, what is your standard then? What is your benchmark? There will be no absolutely no benchmark. Don't you think if you take 1947, that will also have certain inflation compared to 1942? Of course, yes. So that is the reason we try to choose the most recent year with very low volatility in the market, least volatility in the market. That is generally that is generally the year which is chosen as a base year because it has got least volatility. Okay. Okay. Should I read TN board NCIT or Union NCIT or both? Please advise. My recommendation, I'll be very frank with you. I'll be very frank. Listen carefully. In NCIT, I've recommended 4 books: 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. Some of the concepts, I repeat, some of the concepts, even in these NCIT books, is not mentioned. It is not mentioned. Right? So, my recommendation is when you get concepts in NCIT and after end of each of the chapter, if there is a mention in the NCIT, I've mentioned it. In the NCIT, if there is a discussion on this chapter, I've mentioned it at the end of the chapter. For example, after the break, we'll start taxation. Right? Don't say, sir, stop, don't discuss taxation. I'm not discussing. Have a look at this. Regarding taxation, if you look at NCIT books, class 12th, there's a chapter called as budgeting. In budgeting, he has just discussed in 1 or 2 lines like this what is progressive, what is regressive, what is income tax, etc. But in Tamil Nadu board books, discussion is much more larger. Discussion is much more comprehensive. Although I'm saying discussion is much more comprehensive, I'll put a star here also. I'll put a caveat here also. What do you mean by caveat here? If you download the commerce book of Tamil Nadu board and read about direct taxes from page number 309 to 3113, I'm sorry, 313, he has discussed about income taxes. To that extent, you don't have to read. You don't have to read what do you mean by assessment here. You don't have to read what kind of right incomes will be covered under income taxes, what kind of profits of companies will be covered under income taxes. To that extent, you don't have to read. Only the basic idea of a direct taxes, if you can understand, more than sufficient. Okay, done. What is the effect of inflation on food security? How to write it in 250 words? For that, you will have to have a lot of data. I would recommend read current affairs. I'll give a very simple example. In recent times, food inflation in case of India has been more than 6%. Consistently has been more than 6%. So with that, what you can observe, the essentials such as rice, wheat, right, vegetables, pulses, right, etc. The price levels have increased. So don't you think this will have a larger impact on middle income households, lower income households, because they have a limited source of income, right? So in this way, if you have data, you can easily write 250 words on impact of inflation on food security. Okay. Can can we use Phillips curve to describe inflation is good? In what context? In what context, right? Please do let me know. I'm unable to understand how can we use it there. If you have a detailed idea, please do let me know. Sir, a base, okay, already addressed. Okay, this is also done. Okay, what is the impact of inflation on import and export? I'll repeat it. Imagine you're manufacturing this marker, or right, a stylus, whatever you want to call, pen. Let's assume pen. Imagine you're manufacturing this pen. Because of inflation, the price of the pen will increase from 100 rupees to 105. Now, if you want to export it, the price has increased. Don't you think this product might become costlier in the international market, which means your exports will be affected, might start coming down. On the other side, in China, they have manufactured a similar pen. Cost of their pen now is 103 rupees. You as a consumer in India, now you feel with the amount of money, you will be able to purchase more of Chinese goods compared to domestic goods. So automatically imports will start increasing. That is the impact of inflation on import as well as export. Okay, done. So let me stop the discussion here. We'll restart the discussion at 8:06. Take a break. We'll restart the discussion at 8:06. After that, we'll continue with the next chapter. Okay, take a break. Okay, welcome back. Am I audible? Please do let me know. Am I audible? Can we start? Okay, done. Let's start. So the next chapter I'll be taking up will be fiscal policy, and within fiscal policy we'll discuss taxation. We'll discuss taxation within fiscal policy. Now, please understand taxation as such is very, very important. Questions have been asked both in prelims as well as mains from the chapter of taxation, both prelims as well as mains. So, what are the points we'll be covering? One, will discuss basics of taxation. What do you mean by tax? Why should government impose tax? And etc. etc. Then, types of taxation system: direct taxes, indirect taxes, right? Ad valorem. There are different types. We'll go one by one. Some of the types of taxes we'll discuss: value addition taxation, service tax, GST, MAT, GAR, etc. But as far as I'm concerned, VAT is useless now. Why? We do not have a separate VAT. It has been brought under GST. Excise duties, only few are there. Most of it is brought under GST. Service tax brought under GST. So please do not read all the types of taxes for UPSC exam. It is of no use for you. If you don't trust me, please open up last 5 years question papers and have a look at it. You will realize it. Right now, what is most important as far as taxation is concerned in indirect taxes is GST. Goods and service tax is the most important one now. What are the problems with the taxation system? Some of the reforms announced by the government, Laffer curve, and as usual, after that, we'll take up questions. Now, let me start with the basics, basic idea. What do you mean by fiscal policy? We have discussed this earlier also, but let me repeat it. Fiscal policy refers to the usage of taxation as well as expenditures by the government to achieve objectives. Government will use taxation policy as well as its expenditure to achieve certain objectives. That policy is called as a fiscal policy. Now, under fiscal policy, taxation is very important. Let's start with that. What about expenses, sir? Part of expenditure under the fiscal policy, we'll discuss it when I take up budgeting. And next week, we'll discuss budgeting, don't worry. Now, what do you mean by a tax here? What do you mean by a tax? Tax simply means it's a charge. It's a levy that is imposed by the government on individuals, companies, investors, etc. Is it okay? I'll repeat it. What do you mean by tax? Tax is nothing but it's a charge. It's a charge that is imposed by the government, collected by the government, right, on individuals. It is imposed on individuals. It is imposed on households. It is imposed on investors. It is imposed on companies, etc. That is called as a tax. Now, why does government impose a tax? What is the need to impose tax? Please understand this. Government will require money to incur expenses. All of you will agree with me? Anybody has a disagreement regarding this? Let me know. Government requires money to incur expenditure. Expenditure in the form of, let's say, construction of parks. They want to construct, right, let's say road. They want to construct airport, port. They want to provide subsidies for the people, etc. For that, money is required. So government will impose a tax, collect the tax, use the money for these expenses. And that is the precise reason why government impose a lot of tax and collect the taxes. In fact, please remember this. I'll show you data in the next class. Sorry, in the next way. The amount of money that is collected by the government annually from taxation. I'll repeat. The amount of money that the government will collect from taxation annually is more than 55% of its total income. Everybody is okay with the statement? I'll repeat it again. Third time, listen carefully. The amount of money that the government will collect annually out of its total income from taxation is more than 55%. More than 55. Sometimes it is 60%. Sometimes it is 62%. Sometimes it is 58%. Which means the reliance on the government, on the taxation to collect money is very, very high. It's very, very high. Right? Especially in a country such as India, it's very high. Right? So that is why the government will impose the taxes, different types of taxes, and collect these taxes. Now, next point, you will come across a term called as a tax base. You come across a term called as a tax base. What is this tax base? Tax base is referring to any object on which government will impose a tax and collect a tax. I'll give you examples. Just give me a second. Okay. Tax base refers to any object on which government will impose tax and collect taxes. For example, can I say if you are a salaried employee, if you are salaried employee, on the salary, government will impose and collect taxes. Can I call this as a tax base? Anybody has a difficulty, please do let me know. You have a house, right? Let's say you have a house, wealth, right? And on this wealth, government will impose a tax and collect taxes. For example, I'm pretty sure all of you, right? Or let's say at least most of you would have seen your parents paying, or you must be paying property taxes. Is it okay? So can I say here, property is nothing but, right? It's a tax base. You invest in the stock market, you earn a certain income in the stock market. So the stock market, that is the share which you're purchasing and selling, can I say it is a tax base? Income on that is a tax base. So I'll repeat it again. Tax base simply means the object on which government will impose tax and collect the tax. That is called as a tax base. Now, different types of taxation systems. We'll go one by one. Different types of taxation systems. First one is a direct and indirect. Now, let me start with two examples. Listen carefully. Let me start with two examples. Example one, you are earning income. Here is a person X. Let's say person X will earn income. Government will impose income tax on it, and you will pay income tax to the government. Example 2, right? Example 2, you will go to a restaurant, you will order food, and once the bill is given, you will see that in the bill there is a tax component. In the bill there is a tax component. Now what is that? Let me explain. Here is a restaurant. Okay, here is a restaurant. Government will impose GST on the restaurant. The restaurant will collect the GST from you, that is a consumer will collect GST from you and then hand it over to government, pass it on to the government. Now, is there anybody in the classroom who says both of these systems are one and the same? Think of it. Please look at the picture also. Anybody in the classroom who says, so both of these are one and the same, no difference at all, right? In that case, you are mistaken. Why? In example 1, government has imposed a tax on you, has collected tax from you. Correct? Anybody has a problem here? I'll repeat it. Example 1, government has imposed a tax on you, collected a tax from you. In example 2, government has imposed a tax on restaurant, but it has collected tax from you. Right? Which means, understand, there's a technical term, the burden of taxation. The burden of taxation is transferred in example 2 and it is not transferred in example 1. Is it okay? Can we go forward? I'll repeat it. The burden of taxation is transferred in example 2, but it is not transferred in example 1. So always remember this. The direct taxes are generally applicable on incomes, wealth, income, assets, etc. The direct taxes are applicable on those. And because these are applicable on the incomes, etc., the taxation burden is not transferred. The government will impose and collect taxes from the same people. That is, the imposition and collection is from the same person. Such taxes are called as direct taxes. Can we go forward? Whereas in second case, indirect taxes, remember the technicality here, Indirect taxes are generally applicable on transaction, that is a sale of goods and services. On sale in the market, on consideration of sale, indirect taxes are applicable. And because indirect taxes, right, are applicable on a transaction, on a sale here, the tax burden can be transferred. Government will impose a tax on one, but the tax burden is transferred. The tax is paid by someone else in the market. Is the logic okay? Can we go forward here? If you look at example 2, government is imposing a tax on the restaurant owner, but the restaurant owner is not paying the tax. Restaurant owner is transferring the tax burden to you when you go to a restaurant, right? So tax burden in indirect taxes is a transferred. Tax burden in direct taxes is not transferred. It is imposed and collected from the same person, right? Imposed and collected from the same person. In example 2, that is indirect taxes, it is imposed on one, but the tax burden will fall on someone else, right? There are two technical terms here. There are two technical terms. One is called as impact, and second one is called as incidence. One is called as impact, second one is called as incidence. Listen carefully. Impact means what is the first point of taxation. Impact means what is the first point of taxation. Incidence means the final resting place of the tax. The final resting place. Final resting place means who will pay the tax ultimately, on whom the tax burden will fall. That is called as incidence. Now, I'll take example 2. I'll explain both of the terms. Let me know whether it is clear to you or not. In example 2, impact is on restaurant, incidence is on customer. I'll repeat the statement. In example 2, impact is on restaurant, incidence is on customer. So can I say whenever impact and incidence is on different people, it is indirect tax? Is it okay? I'll repeat it again. Whenever impact and incidence is on different people, right, that is indirect tax. And example 1, impact and incidence is on the same person. Correct? Impact and incidence is on the same person, right? So whenever impact and incidence is on the same person, we will call this as direct taxes. Anybody has a problem? Please do let me know. Anybody has a problem? Can we go forward? Can we go forward? Opposite, incidence is first point and impact is on the last point? No. As far as I'm concerned, impact is on first point of contact is impact. Incidence is the final resting place. Please check it. As far as I'm concerned, impact is the first point of application of tax. Incidence is final resting place of the tax. Please check it. Please check it. Okay. Okay. Right. So basic idea is simple. Impact and incidence is on the same person. It is a direct. Impact, incidence on two different people, it is indirect tax. Okay. So direct taxes, best example, income taxes, property taxes, corporate taxes, etc. Right. Indirect taxes, GST. Right. Some of you are asking what is VAT, what is excise. We are not discussing that. Have patience. Okay. GST, right? GST is the best example for indirect taxes. Okay. And always remember this. Always remember, in indirect taxes, the burden will always fall on the customer. I'll repeat the statement. In indirect taxes, the burden will always fall on the customer, and it makes perfect sense also. Some of you are asking, sir, why? Why are we asking the customer to pay it? You are a manufacturer. Let's take this example. You are manufacturing this marker. Now, please tell me, are you going to use the marker or are you going to sell it to me and I am going to use the marker? It's obviously I am going to use the marker. Now, any tax, any indirect tax that you pay for this marker, right? Don't you think it makes perfect sense? Because I am using the marker, I will have to pay all of these taxes. Correct? Correct. Right. So because I'm using the marker, I will have to pay all these indirect taxes. So indirect taxes will always fall on the customer. Right? It will always fall on the customer. Okay. Now, next system of taxation: progressive, regressive, and proportional. Progressive, regressive, and proportional. Now, what do you mean by progressive, regressive, and proportional taxes? Let's go one by one. Okay, let's go one by one. Progressive means whenever the tax base will increase, tax rates will also increase. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. Progressive means whenever the tax base will increase, tax rates will increase. Best example, income taxes. Right? Income taxes. Income taxes. Now, what do you mean by income taxes here? Government of India. If you look at Indian income tax structure, Government of India says if your income is up to 2 lakh, of course, taxable income. There's a term called as taxable income. If your income is 2 lakh rupees, you do not have to pay any income tax to the government. If your income goes beyond 2 lakh, let's say 2 lakh rupees to 5 lakh rupees, then I will ask you to pay 5% income tax. If your income goes beyond 5 lakh to 10 lakh rupees, then I will ask you to pay 20% income tax. Now, please look at the picture and tell me. Please look at the picture and tell me, can I say in this case, as the tax base increases, the tax rate will also keep on increasing. Hence, this is a progressive taxation. Correct? Tax base will increase and the tax rate will also keep on increasing. Hence, progressive taxation. Best example for this is income taxes. Now, regressive taxation, slightly technical. Listen to me very carefully. Regressive taxation. Regressive taxation means as the tax base will widen, tax base will increase, the amount of taxes that you pay, the percentage tax that you will pay to the government will keep on decreasing. I'll repeat the statement here. As the amount of, right, or as the tax base will increase, the percentage tax that you will pay to the government will keep on decreasing. Now, any example for this? Please remember this. Indirect taxes are regressive in nature. Indirect taxes are regressive in nature. Right? Sir, how do you say indirect taxes are regressive in nature? I'll take a very simple example. Imagine, right, there are two people, X and Y. Imagine there are two people, X and Y. Both will go to the shop, purchase the same product. Both will go to the shop, purchase the same product. Can I say both of them will pay same GST amount? Is it okay? If they will purchase the same product, both of them will pay the same GST amount. That is, let's say, X will pay 10 rupee and Y will also pay GST of 10 rupee. But what if I say X income, the total income of X is 100 rupee, total income of Y is 1000 rupee. Total income of X is 100 rupee, total income of Y is 1000 rupee. Now, please do the calculation and let me know, is it okay if I say as the tax base is widening, as the tax base is increasing, lesser percentage of it is being paid by richer people and higher percentage of their income, poor people are paying in the form of taxes? Yes or no? I'll repeat the statement again. I'll repeat the statement. Look at this number that I've written here. X and Y will pay the same amount of GST, 10 rupee, 10 rupee. X has a tax base that is income of 100 rupee. Y has a tax base that is income of 1000 rupee. If you do the calculation, how much is the tax rate paid by Y? How much is the tax rate paid by Y? Can I simply say 1%? And how much is the tax rate paid by X? 10%. Which means as the tax base is increasing, very small percentage of it is paid by the customer in the form of taxation. And if the tax base is very small, right, poor people, right, because they will have to pay same rate of GST. Don't you think large percentage of their tax base they will pay in the form of taxes to the government? That is the reason these taxes are called as regressive. These taxes are called as regressive. All of you okay? Can we go forward? Let me know. All of you okay? Can we go forward? Regressive, the tax rate paid by the customer, right, will keep on decreasing with widening of the tax base. With the increase in the tax base. Right? That is the reason these are called as regressive. And let me know, please think of it now. Can I say direct taxes are progressive in nature, indirect taxes are regressive in nature? Think of it, I'll repeat the statement. Direct taxes are progressive in nature, indirect taxes are regressive in nature. Because always remember this, direct taxes, you can use the direct taxes to target target people. Right? You can target people, target in the sense, if you are earning more than 50 lakh, I will target you, collect more income taxes from you. If you're earning more than 1 crore rupees, I will target you, I'll collect much more taxes from you. But please tell me, can indirect taxes be used to differentiate based on your income? Think of it. Can indirect taxes be used to collect different taxes from different consumers in the market based on their income? Absolutely no. Indirect taxes are universally applicable. It is universally applicable. Whether you're Mr. Mukesh Ambani, Mr. Ratan Tata, Mr. Sham Kaggod, Mr. XYZ, if you purchase a product, all of us will pay same rate of GST. Whereas direct taxes, if your income is more than 1 crore, pay more income taxes. If your income is more than 2 crore, pay more taxes. If your income is less than 2 lakh rupees, don't pay any taxes. Right? So that is the importance. That is the importance of having direct taxes as well as indirect taxes. But in case of India, and generally also, indirect taxes are regressive in nature, because we will end up paying irrespective of our income group. What happens is, the people with very small tax base, out of that tax base, they will pay very high percentage in the form of income. They'll pay very high percentage in the form of income. That is the reason, right, indirect taxes are said to be regressive. These are said to be regressive. Finally, come to the third one, proportional. Right? What is this proportional taxes? Irrespective of tax base, the percentage of taxes will remain same. Irrespective of your tax base, I hope you understand this. Irrespective of your tax base, the percentage, right, taxes that you pay will remain same. Percentage taxes you will pay will always remain same. For example, corporate taxes. For example, corporate taxes. In case of corporate taxes, if, let's say hypothetically, if you decide to pay corporate taxes at, let's say, 25%, can I say whatever your profit is? I'll repeat, whatever your profit is, out of that 25% you will pay to the government. Yes or no? Does it make sense? Please do let me know. I'll repeat it again. Proportional means irrespective of the tax base, whether the tax base is high, whether the tax base is low, doesn't matter. Irrespective of tax base, same percentage of your tax base you will give it to government. Right? Let's say hypothetically, you are you are paying corporate taxes at 25%, or let's say at 30%. If you're paying at 30%, right, if you are paying at 30, if I'm paying at 30, whatever is the tax base does not matter. Both of us will end up paying 30% out of our incomes, out of our profits, to the government. That is called as proportional taxes. That is called as proportional taxes. Right? So progressive, regressive, and proportional taxes. Right? Can we go forward? Can we go forward? Now I'll give you two statements. Please do let me know whether these statements are correct, wrong. Can they be asked in UPSC or not? The indirect taxes have a tendency to cause inflation in the economy. Indirect taxes have a tendency to cause inflation in the economy. They can contribute to inflationary trends in the economy. Direct taxes can be used by the government to control inflation in the economy. Yes, correct. That is, government, if they impose a higher income tax, some of your income will be taken away, which means, right, they can control demand. And on the other side, indirect taxes, right, because they cannot target anyone. Indirect taxes, if they increase indirect taxes, GST for example, market price will increase and automatically it will have a burden on all the consumers in the market, right? It will have a huge burden on all the customers irrespective of your income source. Okay, can we go forward? Some of you are saying both regressive and proportional are one and the same. No, my dear, they are not one and the same. They are not similar. No, absolutely no. Some of the sites have given that both are similar, etc. No, both are not the same. Right? For example, please tell me, in case of regressive taxation, as your income base will increase, out of your income base, will you pay the same percentage in the form of GST under regressive taxation? Please think. If your income base will increase, right? That is, if your tax base will increase, if you purchase a bottle, even after increasing your tax base, will you pay the same fraction of your income, same percentage of your income in the form of GST to the government? No, you will pay same amount of tax. You will pay same amount of tax. For example, forget about everything else. Imagine your salary is 1 lakh rupees today. Your salary is 1 lakh. Out of that, you are paying, let's say, hypothetically, 10,000 rupees in the form of GST. Your salary is 1 lakh. Out of that, 10,000 rupees is GST, which means you're paying 10% of your salary, 10% of your tax base. Now, if your salary increases to 10 lakh rupees, will you pay 10% of your income base in the form of GST? Think of it. No, you'll still pay 10,000 rupees. So in terms of percentage, it will fall down. In terms of percentage, that is what is the effective taxation rate applicable on you, it will fall down. If you're still having doubt, take different salaries, take 10 rupee GST, use calculator, you will see as your tax base will increase, out of that, out of your tax base, how much percentage you will pay to the government will fall down. So rich people will pay less part of their salaries in case of indirect taxes. Poor people will pay most of, or let's say large part of their salaries, that is the tax base in the form of indirect taxes to the government. Whereas in case of proportional, imagine 30% is the tax rate. Please tell me, if your profits are 100 crore, don't you think 30% of it you will give to the government? Your profits are 500 crore, 30% of that you will give to the government. 1,000 crore, 30% of that you will give to the government. Right? So the amount, not amount, the percentage out of your profit, out of your tax base, how much percentage you will keep on giving to government, it will keep on increasing. It will always keep on increasing. That is, that will remain same. My mistake. It will remain same in case of proportional taxes. Right? That is the difference. Please be very careful. Okay. Next, ad valorem tax and specific tax. Ad valorem and specific. In fact, before I go forward, at optional level, we make a calculation. Again, at GS paper, I don't think so. That is no way required for you. But because many of you are asking at optional level, there are two calculations. One is called as average rate of taxation. Second one is marginal rate of taxation. Just for sake, please remember this. In case of proportional taxes, the average rate and marginal rate of taxation will always remain same. In case of a proportional taxes, average rate and marginal rate will always remain same. Right? In case of progressive taxes, average rate will be smaller than marginal rate of taxation. In case of regressive taxation, average rate will be greater than the marginal rate of taxation. Marginal rate of taxation. Just remember those. Right? Proportional, average rate, marginal rate, one and the same. In progressive, average rate will be smaller than marginal rate. And in case of regressive, average rate will be greater than the marginal rate. Now again, don't enter into marginal rate of taxation calculation, average rate of taxation calculation. All of that is irrelevant for GS paper 3. Now, because many of you are asking what is the difference, etc., etc., I am telling you that. Just remember that even if UPSC will ask, I don't expect them to ask you calculations. They will not ask you that. You don't worry about it. Okay, next one, ad valorem and specific tax. Ad valorem and specific taxes. Now, let me start with the example here. Let me start with the example. Now, I have brought your friend back. Can everybody see the packet of gems? Now, point number one, please listen carefully. If the tax is imposed, on what is the value? Value means price. If the tax is imposed on the value of the product, such taxes are called as ad valorem taxes. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. If the taxes are imposed on the value of the product, such taxes are called as ad valorem product. But if the taxes are imposed based on physical attributes of the product, second one I'm talking about, if the tax is imposed based on physical attribute, physical characteristic of a product. What do you mean by physical characteristic? What is the height of the product? What is the length of the product? Right? What is the volume of the product? If government will impose taxes on such characteristics of the product, such physical attributes of the product, such taxes are called as specific taxes. Can we go forward? Anybody has a problem with this? I'll repeat it again. Ad valorem means on the value. Value is nothing but price. Whenever tax is imposed on value of a product, it is called as ad valorem. And whenever government will impose a tax on specific, that is physical attributes, physical characteristics of a product, such as length, such as volume, such as height, such as weight, etc., that is called as specific type of a tax. Right? Any examples of it? Please tell me the GST that you pay. GST that you pay, is it not basically a type of ad valorem tax? Right? That is, let's say, right, price of the product is 100 rupee. Government will have 10% GST, which means value of a product is 100 plus 10% of it, 10 rupee, it will become 110. All of you okay with this? On the other side, cars. If you purchase a car based on the length of the car, I repeat, based on the length of the car, government will impose a tax. That is the reason I hope you have observed it, at least observed it. Generally, the smaller cars, the length will be less than 4 meters. The smaller cars, the length will be less than 4 meters. Why do you think they have a standard length for smaller cars? Right? The reason being, if it is less than 4 meters, government will have a different tax rate. If it is more than 4 meters, government will have a different tax rate. All of you okay with this? I'll give you a current affairs example. Listen to me very carefully now. I'm connecting it to current affairs. Now, in the context of a fuel product, such as petrol, I'll talk about petrol pricing in India. In the context of a fuel product, such as petrol, both the central government as well as state government will impose taxes. Right? Is it okay? Both central government as well as state government will impose taxes. The state governments generally impose a tax based on price of the product, based on value of petrol. That is, let's say the petrol is being sold at 90 rupees. Hypothetically, I'm saying petrol is being sold at 90 rupees. State government will say, I will impose a 10% tax on it. So 90 rupees plus 10% of 99 rupees, that will take the price to 99 rupees. On the other side, central government will impose a certain amount of taxes per liter. Understand this. Central government will fix certain types of taxes. So let's say 7 rupees, 8 rupees, 9 rupees, whatever the number is, it is fixed per liter. So now can I simply say the state government taxes which are imposed on petrol are ad valorem taxes. Central government taxes which are imposed on petrol are specific taxes. Let me know, please participate. I'm talking about current affairs, right? If you're reading newspapers, petrol prices are very important. That's the reason I'm talking about it. I'll repeat it again. Central government will impose a tax, let's say 9 rupees, 9 rupees per liter. 9 rupees per liter. If you purchase 1 liter, you'll pay 9 rupees to the center. If you purchase a 10 liters, you'll pay, right, 90 rupees. So it is based on volume of a product. Correct? Volume is a physical characteristic. So can I call this a tax imposed by the central government on petrol specific tax? On the other side, state governments will also impose taxes on petrol, but it is based on price of the product, price of petrol. If the price of petrol before the state government imposes tax is, let's say, 90 rupees, state government will impose, let's say, 10% of it. That will become 9 rupees. If the price of the petrol is 60 rupees, then government will impose 10%. That will become 6 rupees. So the state government taxes are ad valorem on petrol. Central government taxes are specific taxes on petrol. All of you okay with this? Can I go forward here? Can I go forward? Anybody has any issue? Now regarding petrol, diesel, certain important points. Right? Regarding petrol and diesel, certain fuels, certain important points. Point number 1, in India, more than 80% we are import dependent. More than 80% we are import dependent. What do you mean by import dependent? Whatever is the demand in India, more than 80% of it we will import it, because we do not have sufficient production capacity. Simple reason is we do not have sufficient production capacity. Point number two, whenever the petrol and diesel prices are decided in India, please remember this, right? The government has a decontrolled the petrol diesel prices in the market. Decontrolling means what? Government earlier, not today, government earlier used to be involved in the pricing of these commodities. Right? I'm using the term decontrolled, or else they will also use the term deregulated. Earlier, government used to be involved in pricing of these commodities. Today, government is not involved. But although there is a criticism here, I'll come back to that, don't worry. Government is not involved. We have deregulated, right, the petrol prices. We have deregulated diesel prices. Then who will decide the petrol and diesel prices? We follow a methodology called as a dynamic pricing. On day-to-day basis, the sellers, right? The one who are selling petrol or diesel to you on day-to-day basis, based on various factors such as international prices, import prices, their margin, etc. On everyday basis, they will decide the pricing. That methodology is called as a daily dynamic pricing. We follow daily dynamic pricing. But on the other side, there is a criticism. That is the criticism part here. There is a criticism that although government has deregulated the prices, although the government has deregulated the fuel prices, the government even today to a very great extent influences the market prices. I'll repeat the statement. What do you mean by deregulation? Government will not be involved. Government will not influence the price. Let the sellers decide the pricing. But even today, the criticism is that both the center as well as states, by the way, before you start accusing me of anything, both center and states have been accused of having a huge influence on the market prices of the products. How? How is the market price influenced by the governments here? Right? Look at the example very carefully. How do we decide the market price of a fuel here? Right? How do we decide? The process is very simple. First, we will import the fuel. So what is the price of the import? First, we will import the fuel. What is the price of the import? After I import, I will refine the fuel. Correct? I will refine. Refining means what? Right? Let me show an example here. Again, UPSC will not ask you this. Please let me know. Do you remember this kind of structure in your high school? And technically, this is called as fractional distillation. Right? Technically, this is referred to as fractional distillation. Fractional distillation. That is, you will basically put in a crude here, and at different temperatures. At different temperatures, you will get the output: petrol, diesel, kerosene, aviation turbine fuel, naphtha, etc. This is called as fractional distillation. That is refining. So first you will import it, then you will refine it. That these are the expenses which are imposed and collected by the OMCs. OMCs are nothing but oil marketing companies. Now after this, the fuel will reach the petrol bunk, right? And even now there are certain margins which are collected by the petrol stations. Margin means profit, right? They also want to earn certain money. Now in addition to this, we have central government taxes. We also have state government taxes. We have central taxes, we also have state taxes. If you put together all of this, you will get market prices. Right? This is point number one. Now, what is a criticism? What is a criticism here? Imagine the price of crude oil in the international market fell down. The price of crude oil in the international market fell down, which means all of you will agree the first component in deciding the market prices will become lower now. The first component in deciding the market prices will become smaller, which means market prices should also go down. It generally, understand this, that is the market price doesn't come down by the same number. The market price does not fall by the same number with which the import prices have fallen. The reason being, whenever the import prices will fall down, the central government as well as the state government will increase the tax component. Very simple. They will increase the tax component, which means, I'll put it in a statement. Let me know whether this is correct or not. Whenever the prices of crude oil in the international market will decline, the complete benefit of this is not given to customers in India. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. If the crude oil prices in the international market will fall down, the complete benefit of it is not given to customers. Complete benefit is not given. Right? If the crude oil prices will fall down by, let's say, 10 rupee, the fuel prices, petrol prices will come down by 1 rupee. That's it, by 1 rupee, 2 rupee. But on the other side, if the import prices will go up, right, the market prices of the fuels will automatically start increasing, which means when the import prices will go up, we are paying more, we are being burdened. But on the other side, if import prices will go down, we are not getting the complete benefit. Again, I'm not criticizing a single government. Every government does it. Central government does it, state government does it. Right? That is the reason. If you read multiple newspapers in today's business line, I don't know how many of you read business line, but in today's business line, there is a very nice article saying that is there a case for reducing the retail prices of petrol in India? right? Is there a case of reducing the retail prices? Retail prices means the price that we pay of petrol in India. Is there a case? Because the international prices have declined in recent times. International prices of crude oil have actually declined in recent times. So all of you okay? Now please tell me, if I give you a statement, does it make a sense? The sense is that, or the statement is that, although government of India has deregulated the fuel prices, even today, the governments have a huge influence on the market prices of fuels. I'll repeat the statement. Though the government has deregulated fuel prices, that is petrol, diesel, ATF, etc., even today, the governments, that is the center as well as state government, to a very great extent influence the retail prices of fuels in India. So all of you are okay with the statement? All of you okay? Okay. Now some of you are asking why the fuel prices will change from one state to another state. My dear, state government taxes will change. Correct. State government taxes will change. Transportation cost will add to the margin, etc. So because of various factors, obviously, the fuel prices will be different from one state to another state. That's a very, very logical argument. Okay. Huh. Can we go forward now? Can we go forward? All of you okay with ad valorem tax and specific taxes? Please do let me know. Ad valorem tax as well as specific taxes. Okay. Let me go to the next one. Next set of taxation is a surcharge and cess. Next set of taxation is surcharge and cess. Cess. Now, what is a surcharge? What is a cess? Let's start. Surcharges are additional taxes which are imposed and collected, whenever the tax base will cross a certain threshold level. I'll give you an explanation. Listen to the definition first. Surcharges are additional taxes. Additional taxes means certain taxes are applicable already. In addition to these taxes, more taxes is applicable whenever the tax base will cross a certain threshold level. Sir, what do you mean by that? Let me give a very simple example. Imagine there are three people, X, Y, and Z, or A, B, C, D, E, F, doesn't matter. X is earning 10 lakh rupees, Y is earning 50 or let's say 60 lakh rupees, and Z is earning 2 crore rupees, of course, per annum. Let's take per annum. Now, can I simply say, out of these three people, Z has highest capacity to pay more taxes? Or else, I'll put in a different statement. There is a principle called as principle or canon of taxation. There is something called as canons of taxation. And canons of taxation simply says, government should impose and collect more taxes if the person has more capacity to pay taxes. If the person has higher capacity to pay taxes, government should impose and collect more taxes. That is principle of taxation, canons of taxation, capacity to pay. In this case, Z has the highest capacity. So can I impose and collect more taxes from Z? Of course, yes. Y has more capacity compared to X. So I will impose more taxes on Y compared to X, collect more taxes. Now, that is the reason, please understand this, the highest rate of income taxes on individuals. I repeat, highest rate of taxes on individuals in India is 30%. Right? The highest rate of taxation on individuals' income in India is 30%. Now, please tell me, government says anybody whose taxable income is more than 10 lakh will have to pay 30% tax. So you are already supposed to pay certain income taxes. But don't you think, why should be asked to pay additional taxes apart from 30%? Correct? Why should be asked additional taxes to be paid apart from the 30% they're supposed to pay? Same thing I will do with Z also. Because the Z has a higher tax base, the capacity to pay taxes is higher for Z. So I will impose additional taxes, more taxes on Y and Z, collect more taxes from them. This principle or this kind of a taxation is called as surcharge. Anybody has a difficulty in this? Anybody has a difficulty? So tax base limitation is 10 lakh rupees. If you cross 10 lakh rupees, you will have to pay 30%. But government says if you are earning 60 lakh, you'll have to pay more taxes. But right now the tax rate is only 30. So what I'll do, I will collect 30% from Y as well as Z. But in addition to the 30%, I will also impose and collect surcharges. Right, so that is the reason. Have a look at the definition now. Surcharges are additional taxes which are imposed and collected whenever the tax base will cross a certain threshold. Can I go forward? Anybody has difficulty, please do let me know. Can I go forward? Right, next point. Surcharges, right? Understand this. Surcharges, right? Can I say these are part of direct taxes? Surcharges are part of direct taxes. And point number 3, direct taxes, including surcharges, by the way, can I say can be used by the government to reduce income inequality in India. I'll repeat the statement. Surcharges, including right other types of direct taxes, can I say can be used by the government to reduce income inequality in India. Income inequality. That is right. Imagine if there was no taxation. Right? Those are asking how, sir? Right? How can it be used to reduce income inequality? Imagine no taxes were imposed on the income. So to begin with, the income inequality, if there was no taxation, is very, very high in this example. One person is earning 10 lakh, another person is earning 60, and the third person is earning 2 crore rupee. But by imposing higher taxes, right? Imposing higher taxes, including surcharges, I'll be taking more amount of taxes from Z as well as Y compared to X. So by imposing and collecting more and more taxes, am I not reducing income inequality in the system? Answer is yes. Answer is simply yes. Okay. So this is right one more point regarding surcharges as well as basically direct taxes as well. Next important point. Understand this very carefully. I'll come back to this, and to make you understand this point, I need one more concept. Now remember this point. Again, I'll not discuss this when I take up budgeting. Please follow the discussion now. Remember this. Most of the pan-India taxes, most of important taxes which are applied throughout India, pan-India means throughout India, the powers of it have been given to central government. Right? For example, you'll ask me, sir, what kind of examples, right, can be called as a pan-India tax? Can I say income tax is a pan-India tax? Right? All of you okay? Income tax. What about customs duties? Customs are applicable on imports and exports. Custom duties are imports and exports are taxed. So that is called as customs duties. What about corporate taxes? Corporate taxes is applicable throughout India. Who has the power? Who has the power to impose and collect these pan-India taxes? It is given to the central government. It is given to the central government. And again, if you want to understand, sir, where it is given in the central government, etc., Constitution of India. In the Constitution of India, there is a Schedule 7. If polity is over for you, I'm pretty sure it is over for you. If it is not over, it will be discussed later. Please don't worry. So under Schedule 7, we have a division of powers. And under the division of powers, there is a financial power which is given to the center, financial power which is given to the state. So corporate taxes, income taxes, etc. are given to central government. That is point number 1. Point number 2, if the central government will impose and collect all of these taxes, central government is now mandated. It is mandated to distribute part of it to the states also. Right? There is a compulsion on the central government to distribute part of these taxes that they have collected to the state governments also. Why? Don't you think a state government, let's say Maharashtra, where production is so high, companies are earning profit, people are earning income, they'll pay taxes to the central government, corporate taxes, and as well as individual income taxes. If only the central government will keep it, don't you think the state governments will suffer because of it? Yes or no? If central government will collect income taxes from the people, corporate taxes from the companies, from where will the state governments get sufficient amount of money to take care of their own expenditure? That is the reason under the Constitution of India, we have Article 280. We have Article 280. What does Article 280 say? It recommends appointment of Finance Commission. Under the Article 280, once every 5 years, the President of India has to appoint Finance Commission. Please tell me, was the term Finance Commission recently in the newspapers? Last 2 to 3 weeks. Not even 2 to 3 years. Last 2 to 3 weeks. Was the term Finance Commission there in the current affairs? Answer is yes. Government of India has appointed 16th Finance Commission now. It has appointed 16th Finance Commission. Now, what is the role of the Finance Commission? The Finance Commission will basically find out how much is the central government collecting in the form of these taxes. How much is the central government collecting in the form of these taxes? That is, let's say, excise, right? Let's say customs duty, income taxes, corporate taxes, etc. How much is the central government collecting? And this is called as central divisible pool. The amount of money that the central government will collect by imposing the taxes, it is called as central divisible pool. From the central divisible pool, now the Finance Commission will recommend how much of this money will go to all the states put together and how much of the money will go to only central government. All of you okay with this, right, discussion? The Finance Commission will decide, it will recommend, decide in the sense it will recommend to the central government how much of the central divisible pool. And again, what do you mean by central divisible pool? The money that is collected by the central government by imposing taxes throughout India and collected. That money is called as central divisible pool. How much of the central divisible pool should go to the states? How much should be used by the central government? That recommendation is given by the Finance Commission. All of you okay with this? I will not go forward with Finance Commission now because I'll have a separate discussion. I need this concept to explain surcharges and cesses. What is the use of this concept? Whenever the central government will impose and collect the surcharges, there is no compulsion on the central government to distribute part of it to the states. I'll repeat the statement. Listen to me very carefully. It is applicable even to cesses. So whenever central government will impose and collect either cesses or surcharges, there is absolutely no compulsion on the government to distribute part of this with the states. If the center wants, I repeat, if the center wants, they can give. If the center doesn't want, there is no compulsion. Right? That is the importance of surcharges as well as cesses. Can we go forward now? Now, what is a cess? What is a cess? What do you mean by cess? Surcharge is done. What do you mean by cess? Cesses are those types of taxes. I repeat, cesses are those types of taxes which are imposed and collected to achieve a specific objective. I'll repeat the statement. Cesses are those types of taxes which are imposed and collected by the government to achieve specific objective. For example, sir, what do you mean by specific objective? Right? Let's say Government of India is imposing and collecting, let's say one example, Krishi Kalyana Cess. Krishi Kalyana Cess. Now look at the name of the type of cess and tell me, can Government of India use these funds for, right, let's say, development of airports? Think of it. Can Government of India use these funds for anything else, except for agriculture promotion? Right? So answer is no. Right? They will have to use it only for agriculture promotion. I'll give you one more example. Healthcare cess. Healthcare and education cess. Can government of India use right healthcare and education cess to promote exports? Is it possible? Answer is no. Right? Why? You have imposed and collected the healthcare cess. Right? It means right. It means simply right. You will have to use it only for healthcare. You'll have to use it only for healthcare. You cannot use it for any other purposes. Right? That is a meaning. That is a meaning of the term cess. You'll have to use it only for specific purposes. Other purposes, it is not allowed. It is not at all allowed. Okay, so that is the basic idea of a cess. And any amount collected by the central government under cess, again, it is not part of the divisible pool. There is no compulsion on the center to distribute this to the states. Right? So all of you okay with the concept of surcharges and cess? Let me know. All of you okay with the concept of surcharges and cess? Can we go forward? Can we go forward now? Second point of surcharges. Some cesses are imposed as a percentage of the tax, and in some cases it is imposed on value. For example, in some cases, imagine you're purchasing something of 100 rupee, government will impose a 10 rupee as a cess. Right? That is basically a certain fixed amount. In certain cases, if you're purchasing 100 rupee, government will fix a 2% of 100 rupee. So either on value or as a fixed amount. Right? It can be used by the government. Right? So this is cesses, this is surcharges. Next one, anti-dumping, countervailing and safeguard. Anti-dumping, countervailing and safeguard. And if you're reading newspapers, please do let me know. Was the term countervailing taxation recently in the newspaper? Those who are reading Hindu, you will be bold in the UPSC because of these things only. Right? Let me know. Right? And if you have not read in Hindu, type it in the Google, you will be surprised. Very recently, government of USA has imposed countervailing duties on 3 products which are exported from India. Very recently, in the last 1 week, this has happened. Right? The government of USA has imposed countervailing duties on 3 of the exports done from India to USA. Same thing by European Union as well. Right? Now, what is this idea of anti-dumping, countervailing and safeguard? Now, I'll start with an example. Right? I'll show you pictures here. I'll start with the example. Listen to me carefully. Right now, I'm telling you, listen to me carefully, because after I discuss all the 3, there'll be certain students who will say all the 3 are one and the same. No difference. All the 3 are one and the same. Whereas all the 3 are different, you will have to listen carefully to me. Let's start. Anti-dumping duty. Now, point number 1, what do you mean by dumping? Imagine, I'll take a simple example. Imagine I am a manufacturer in China. I'm manufacturing a product in China. Let's say this marker. I will export the marker at 100 rupees. Again, I'll have to use dollars, but don't worry, dollars, right? Think of it in rupees only. I will export this marker to rest of the world, to many other countries in the world at 100 rupee. But when I export this to India, when I'm exporting this to India, I will export it at 97 rupees. All of you are okay with the point number 1? I'm a manufacturer in China. I'll manufacture this marker. I will export this to all the other countries at 100 rupees. But when I export this to India, I will export it at 97 rupees. Now, this process or this activity of suppressing the prices, I'll repeat the statement. This activity of suppressing means reducing the price of the product when they export it to India. This is called as dumping. This process is called as dumping activity. And many of you will be wondering, sir, why are you reducing the price? When you export it to India, why are you reducing the price? Please tell me, if I reduce the price and export it to India, can I say in India, more of my products will be demanded? Yes or no? More and more demand will be there for my products. What about other manufacturers in India? They will not be able to compete, right? They will not be able to sell at 97 rupees. So domestic activity would be affected. I will make more and more profits by selling more and more in India. This is called as a dumping activity. Right now, tell me, if you are a domestic manufacturer, don't you think dumping activity will negatively affect you? You cannot compete. So basically, it will negatively affect you. So what does the government do? Right? What does the government do in that particular situation? Government will conduct investigation and government will find that when I export this marker to other countries, I'm exporting at 100, but when I export to India, I am suppressing the price. I am reducing the price purposely, right? And that is the reason why my product has a higher demand in India. So now government will impose additional taxes on this product, right? Now government to curb, to basically prohibit dumping activity, will impose additional taxes. I will call this as anti-dumping duty. I will call this as anti-dumping duty. Is the first one very clear with all of you? Anti-dumping duty. Let me go to the second one. Countervailing duty. There is another name for countervailing duty. It is also referred to as anti-subsidy duty. Anti-subsidy duty. Now, what do you mean by countervailing duty or anti-subsidy duty? Look at the second example and listen carefully. I am manufacturing this marker and I am exporting. The actual cost, if I don't get any subsidy, the actual cost is 100 rupee. Now, if I don't get any subsidy from the government, I will simply export it at 100 rupees. Now, government, imagine my government will give me a subsidy of 5 rupees. My government will give me a subsidy because I'm manufacturing this marker. My government will give me a subsidy of 5 rupee. So now, after I get a subsidy of 5 rupee, can I say I will start exporting this product at 95 rupees, right, out of my country? All of you okay? I will start exporting this at 95 rupees because I'm getting a subsidy of 5, actual cost is 100, reduce it by 5 rupees. So I will start exporting this at 95 rupees. Now in India, this pen will come into India at 95 rupees because it is cheaper compared to all the other companies in India. This is cheaper in India. Obviously, the demand for the product will increase. So domestic companies would be affected. Imports will start increasing. Now, government of India will conduct investigation. They will realize that this pen in India is becoming cheaper because I'm getting subsidies from the government. Is it okay? Right? Imagine I'm in China, by the way. Because I'm getting subsidies from the Chinese government, this pen is becoming cheaper in India when it is imported from China. So government of India will now impose taxes, additional taxes on the import of the pen, which is called as a countervailing duty or anti-subsidy duty. Countervailing duty or anti-subsidy duty. So all of you okay with the second type of a tax here? Second tax. And now tell me, is there anyone who will say, sir, first and second both are one and the same? No difference. Both are one and the same. No, both are different. Both are different. Third one, safeguard duty. Third one is safeguard duty. Now, what is this idea of a safeguard duty? Let me explain this. Listen carefully. Imagine, again same, right? Imagine I'm a Chinese manufacturer. I have purchased a new type of technology. I purchased a new technology. Right? And because I've purchased a new type of technology, or let's say I'm replacing raw material with another cheaper raw material. Now, because of that, can I say I can manufacture this marker, I can manufacture this pen at a lower price? Correct? I can manufacture this pen at a lower price. And when I manufacture this pen at lower price, I will export this product. I am not receiving any subsidy, by the way. Listen carefully. I am not receiving any subsidy. I am able to purchase raw material at lower prices. Labor cost has become lower for me. I've purchased new technology. I can produce more at a lower cost. So automatically, the cost of production for the pen has come down for me. Now I will export this to India. And because this product is cheaper, don't you think automatically in India, because there is no competition for me in India, the import of this will suddenly rise up. Correct? Import of this pen in India will suddenly rise up. And when the imports will suddenly start increasing like this, domestic manufacturers will not be able to compete government of India. In order to protect and promote domestic manufacturers, will impose additional tax on this marker or this pen. That tax is called as safeguard duty. That tax wherein the government wants to protect domestic manufacturers, because the imports are suddenly rising, they are very competitive and they are suddenly rising. Government will impose a tax which is called as a safeguard duty, so this is the third type of taxes that are imposed by the government generally whenever there are concerns regarding imports. Now, if you're reading newspapers carefully, some of you are saying it is there in the Hindu also, sir. Great. Right? If it is there, good. If you're reading the newspaper very carefully, I said USA government has imposed countervailing duties on 3 of India's exports. What is the reason they have cited? Think of it. What is the reason USA saying they are imposing countervailing duties? USA says government of India is giving subsidies. Right, government of India is giving subsidies, right, to these products. There's a scheme of government of India, there's a program of government of India which we will discuss later. We'll discuss that, don't worry, we'll discuss all of it. There's a scheme of government of India, RODTEP, remission of duties and taxes on export products. So the government of USA and European Union, what they're saying is government is giving subsidies, and that is the precise reason the products are becoming cheaper. They are coming into our countries, right? So we do not want the government to provide such subsidies, and because they have provided, I will impose countervailing duties. I will impose, right, the anti-dumping duties on it. Done? Right, so one is anti-dumping. I'll put it in a nutshell. Listen carefully again. Please listen carefully. If you are not listening, even if I repeat it 100 times, there is no point. Listen carefully. Anti-dumping. I will export the product to rest of the world at a higher price, but to India, I will export it at lower price. Why? I want my products to be sold more in India. This is called as a dumping. And to counter the dumping, government will impose additional taxes called as anti-dumping. Second, I will get subsidy from my government. Because I get subsidy, product becomes cheaper. Now I'll export this product to all the other countries, including India. Now, because I'm getting subsidy, the product has become cheaper in India. Government will say, because the Chinese government is giving subsidy to me, it is cheaper. Hence, government of India will impose additional taxes to basically negate, to cancel out the subsidy benefit. That is called as countervailing or anti-subsidy. Third one is safeguard. I am manufacturing and my product is competitive. It could be because of better technology, cheaper raw material, cheaper labor, whatever the reason. My products are much cheaper compared to manufactured in India. So automatically these cheaper products, competitive products, imports will suddenly rise in India. And that will affect domestic manufacturing. Now, to safeguard, to protect domestic manufacturing and promote their production, government of India will impose additional duties on the import. That is called a safeguard duty. So all the three are different, not one and the same. Please be very, very careful. Now, what is the authority? What is the most important authority to take care of all of this? There is an authority, DGTR, Directorate General of Trade Remedies. Directorate General of Trade Remedies, DGTR, Directorate General of Trade Remedies. DGTR is the authority which will conduct investigations under all of these cases, and DGTR basically functions under Ministry of Commerce. Ministry of Commerce will give recommendation to Ministry of Finance. They will say to Ministry of Finance, okay, there is a dumping activity. Please announce anti-dumping duty. Right, here is the proof of it. There is subsidies which are given by government of USA and their products are coming into India. Please announce countervailing duty. Here is the report. So DGTR will submit the report to Finance Ministry. Finance Ministry will announce these types of taxes. Okay, right. So these are the different types of taxation systems. Please be very, very careful. Now next, we will have a discussion regarding direct taxes. Next, we will have a discussion regarding direct taxes and indirect taxes. The first one, direct taxes. Right? What we'll be discussing under direct taxes? We'll discuss different types of direct taxes. We'll go one by one. Please listen carefully. First one is income tax. First one is income tax. Now, whenever you say income tax, please remember this. The law that is applicable in India under which income taxes are imposed, it is Income Tax Act of 1961. Income Tax Act of 1961. The earlier law was passed in 1880, right? The first law for income taxes was passed in 1880. Over a period of time, we have passed Income Tax Act of 1961. So even today, whatever income taxes are imposed, either on companies or on individuals, etc., it is coming under the Income Tax Act of 1961. Now, whenever you say income taxes, although generally we use income taxes in the context of individuals, please remember this. Income Tax Act of 1961 gives the power to the center to impose income tax on individual income in India. Individual incomes also are covered under Income Tax Act. Even corporates, that is companies, the profits earned by the companies, these are also taxed under the Income Tax Act of 1961. These are also taxed under the IT 1961, Income Tax Act of 1961. Right? So please be very careful. Although we use term corporate taxes, it doesn't mean there is a different law for corporate taxes. The profits earned by the companies, they are also taxed under the Income Tax Act only. What about incomes earned by us? They are also taxed under Income Tax Act. If I'm having a salary, under Income Tax Act. If I'm investing in the stock market, again it might come under the income tax. Right? So lot of these incomes are covered under the Income Tax Act of 1961. Right? So individual income taxes, right? Today in case of India, please remember, there are two different systems, right? There are two different systems on what basis the income taxes are supposed to be paid. You do not have to remember both of the systems. It is not at all needed for GS paper 3. Remember that. It's not needed. Do not by heart. Do not waste your time. But generally understand this. Whatever is your income, government doesn't collect income taxes on the full income. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. Whatever is your income, on the full income, government will not impose taxes and collect it. What generally happens is government will allow you to make certain deductions. There are certain provisions under Income Tax Act. Section 80, right? Section 80C, Section 80D, etc. There are certain sections. Section 24. There are certain sections under income tax wherein certain part of the income that you have used for certain purposes, government says you do not have to pay income tax on this. For example, many of you ask me, sir, give me example. What do you mean by that? Right? All of you know there is a product available in the market, that is a housing loan. Let me know. All of you know banks will provide housing loan, and when you take a housing loan, on monthly basis, you'll have to pay certain amount of money to the bank. You'll have to repay the loan. So in 1 year, in a financial year, up to certain limit, the payment that you have done in the housing loan out of your income, the payment that you have done, you do not have to pay income tax on it. Right, up to certain limit, the principal amount will be right exempted. You don't have to pay on it. Certain interest amount you do not have to pay on it. Right, imagine you have invested in the public provident fund, PPF, public provident fund. You do not have to pay taxes on it. So always remember this: out of your income, government will allow you to make certain deductions, and whatever is left out, that is called as taxable salary or taxable income. Is it okay? That is called as a taxable salary or taxable income. And on this taxable salary or taxable income, government will impose either 5% or 20% or 30% income taxes and collect it from you. This is related to individual income tax, individual income taxes. Right now, please think of it and do let me know. Can I say income taxes are not imposed and collected on gross salary, but on net salary? I'll repeat the statement here. Please do let me know. Yes or no. Correct or wrong. The income taxes which are imposed and collected by the government is not on the gross salary, but on the net salary. Correct? Can we go forward now? Okay, so this is regarding individual income taxes. Now we'll stop the discussion today here. Tomorrow we'll start with corporate taxes. Tomorrow we will start with corporate taxes. We'll start the discussion from this slide tomorrow. Now, if you have any questions, please do let me know. But before I take up questions, point number 1, Hindu newspaper articles. Any newspaper article which is relevant for UPSC in today's Hindu newspaper. There is, in the first page, there is one article regarding a new law on telecommunications. Telecom sector. There is a new bill which has been proposed, not yet implemented. There is a new law which has been proposed by the government. Bill has been introduced in the parliament now, not at past, regarding telecommunications. My recommendation, please read that article. Read that article. Do not expect that to be covered in the book. Please read that article. It is slightly technical, but a lot of concepts are being discussed in that article. For example, I'm pretty sure modern Indian history is over for you. Modern Indian history is over for you. Right, so in the context of modern Indian history, you will come across Telegraph Act. Correct? You will come across a term called as Telegraph Act. Right, Telegraph Act during British government. This new law on telecommunications will replace the Telegraph Act. Suddenly, UPSC can pick up a question on Telegraph Act. Is it okay? Right? You are reading this article, but UPSC will look at the article and say, let me ask a question on Telegraph Act. Right, so I hope you understand. Right, so please read that. In fact, because I'm telling you about a Hindu newspaper, in business line, right, in business line, there is one more article. In fact, that is also very important. In business line, maybe tomorrow, day after tomorrow, they'll cover it in Hindu. If it is covered, please read that. India Post Act. India Post Act. Right, there is a postal act in India. Again, during the British government. Right, again during the British government, there is an act which was introduced, a Postal Act. The Parliament has approved a new Postal Act. Parliament has approved a new Postal Act. That is also important. It is not there in Hindu today. I don't know what is the reason. They might cover it later. If they cover, please read it. Please read it. Right, Postal Act, the Postal Act 1898, the Telegraph Act of 1885. All of these you have come across in the modern Indian classes, but suddenly now these are there in the current affairs. So please be very careful. Please be very careful. Questions can be asked like this. So as far as I am concerned, in Hindu newspaper, there was one article regarding the new law which will regulate telecommunications. Second one, I don't think so that is important. I don't think so that is important. But because, again, I'll tell you the context also. Very recently, there is a demise of one of the value investors in the international market. Charlie Munger. Have you heard of this? Right, Warren Buffett, the right hand person of Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. Right, he is one of the very well known investors in the international market. And Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, etc., these are known as value investors. Right, these are known as value investors. And today's Hindu newspaper, the explained session, right, explained page in Hindu newspaper, there is an article on value investing. Again, slightly technical. I don't expect UPC to ask a question on value investing, but because right, Mr. Charlie Munger passed away, and there was a lot of discussion regarding Mr. Warren Buffett, strategy of Mr. Warren Buffett. Suddenly, in that context, value investment might become important. Only in that context. Apart from that, value investing for a GS paper 3 for a UPSC aspirant not needed. Only if you're invested in the stock market, that is needed. Okay, anyways, these two articles I felt are important. Read them. Right, now let me take up questions. Sir, if questions come on types of taxation, I have to write all these types. Yes, but I don't expect questions will come on types of taxation. Okay. Can we use Phillips curve to describe inflation is good as there is inverse relationship between inflation and unemployment rate? Please tell. Yes, you can say that. In that context, again, I've already told you that inflation rate is already generally associated, not always, generally associated with growth. And the extension of that argument is nothing but the Phillips curve. So fiscal policy taxation chapter, something not understand, something understanding, but previous chapter 50-50 not understanding how to understand. Revise. Read the references that I've given. Revise. Repeat taxable income. I'll repeat it again. If your salary is, let's say, 1 lakh rupees, government will not collect the taxes on full 1 lakh rupees. Why? From the salary, government will allow you to make certain deductions. These are allowed. And once you make deductions, whatever is left out, that is called as a taxable salary. Okay. Can ad valorem specific be imposed on same product? As far as I know, we have not come across any product where you can impose both of them. I have not come across it. Okay. Does central government alter its tax rate related to petrol frequently? They may, right? And in the last 2 years, they have done it, by the way. Again, not only just central government, even state governments. Sir, if government of China gives subsidy on a product, then price reduced in of that product in India, then government will impose countervailing or anti-dumping. My dear, if government is giving subsidy, that is, let's say Chinese government is giving subsidy, and that product enters into India and becomes cheaper, the government of India will impose a countervailing. Okay. Sir, if I read for economics, PPTs and reference book enough, or also read NCERT? My recommendation is read NCERTs. 9th to 12th. I've given the references in the first class. PPT, it is there. Download it. Okay. Any other questions? Bottleneck inflation. Right? Bottleneck inflation means there are certain issues in the economy. There are certain structural problems in the economy, such as, let's say, transportation cost is higher, right? Or let's say you do not have sufficient, let's say, trucks for transportation. You do not have a sufficient warehousing. That is called as a bottleneck inflation. Okay, done. So let me stop the discussion today here. We'll continue the discussion. We'll continue the discussion from corporate taxes tomorrow. Okay, so that's it from my side. Take care. See you tomorrow sharp 6 a.m.